Yeah, I can hear you. Chat, can you hear Mr. Nobbel fine?
How is the quality? Because I'm using my headset mic for Discord. Somehow Discord does not love the radio microphone.
Oh, it's perfect on my end. Yeah, and chat seems to love it as well.
Nice. He's a little low. I can move it a little bit close to my mouth, or I could boost it on my end, I suppose. Maybe
No, I've
boost
got
me?
you. Yeah, I've got you. I've got you. Okay, I think you should be fine now. Let's see.
Excellent.
Yeah, there we go. That should be perfect. All right. How's your day going, Mr. Nobbel?
My day is only just begun, to be honest. I've had a chat with my accountant, did some grocery shopping, about ready to go for a run. But then somebody was like, let's go bitch about the lore. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go bitch about the lore. How much can I curse on your stream? It's all degenerate talk, yeah?
You can fucking swear as much as you want, dude. I don't care. If you don't swear, they won't trust you.
Oh, right, okay. That's how it works here. All right.
Yeah. No, speak your mind. You just started Final Fantasy. Before we even get into the lore shit, like the WoW's mess, what's your thoughts? I need to get pick your brain on your Final Fantasy experience so far.
Ooh, actually yesterday people asked me what are your favorite characters, and I was hard pressed to find one. I think the one that teaches me how to box, I really like that character.
Okay.
So far it's a lot of running around and a lot of listening to story, but apparently that's the game. So that's a mindset, like it's not comparable to another MMO.
No.
But I'm really happy that I actually take the time to read it all out, because as you said yesterday, the moment you learn about the primals and stuff like that, and you're like, I remember the primals from 14, from 10 and from 7, like the summons. I'm like, oh, I know these. And that's just tickling me, like, okay, what is my role in this world, and what exactly are these primals about, and where is it going? And to hear you describe it yesterday, like, oh yeah, they're gonna be referencing a lot back, I was like, oh, that is, yeah, I'm down for this.
It is like the way they introduce the lore. Now, I'll agree with you. You have to basically forget everything you know about video games when you play Final Fantasy, right? Because it's like literally playing Witcher 3 almost, just running and having massive conversations and then massive conversations. You know, it's a conversation narrative driven game, which is amazing. But if you're not prepared for it, you're going to be bored out of your mind. Right.
You gotta be in a mindset. Yeah, it's why I stopped playing Witcher 3, to be honest. Everybody told me Witcher 3, best game ever.
Yeah.
And I was playing Witcher 3 and I just put my controller down every 5 minutes to watch a 30-minute cutscene. I'm like, I just want to play a video game. But in the case of Final Fantasy, at least it's a bit more balanced. At least you're doing a bit more than that.
You've not, like, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but apparently it gets better. Heavensward and really in Stormblood is where they sort of found their groove. Like, that's where they figured out exactly what the amounts need to be.
I've been told, like, if you get through ARR, you become a walking advertisement. So I'm waiting for that moment. But so far, like, if I wouldn't be enjoying it, I wouldn't be playing it. And every day I wake up like I want to play more. And then there's a queue. So, I want to play.
Yeah, fucking queue times. But at least that tells us the game is successful. The game's doing well, and I'm happy for Yoshi P and his team. But let's switch to what everyone is here for. I think I don't think that's an understatement. Okay, World of Warcraft, dude. First, I have to ask you: when 9.2 was announced, what was your immediate thought on 9.2?
The announcement. Oh, I mean, I went into the announcement with bare minimum expectations, and I feel like they hit bare minimum expectations. A new zone, a new raid, and that's it. It was not going to be anything groundbreaking. It wasn't going to change minds and hearts. Like, oh yeah, we're going to go back to WoW now. The moment that they said, like, this is a land where you can walk on water, I was like, that's a selling point for your patch, huh?
Yeah.
And they're really proud of it because, like, spoiler alert. I'm going to assume that we're just going to put a massive spoiler alert on this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're really proud of the fact that this is water you can walk on. As literally in the first quest, Pelagos goes like, this is water you can walk on. And like, Bliss, we've been able to walk on water since forever. What are you doing? It's not special. Yeah. Then they went on in the presentation like, oh yeah, it's got floating islands and it got desert land, so it's Nagrand, it's Voldoon, it's You're trying to sell me on the idea like this is where the entire Warcraft universe came from. And it's not a bad looking zone, don't get me wrong. It's miles better than Corvia was, so that's at
Yeah.
least something.
I
But
mean,
it doesn't feel like this is the place.
to be real, it doesn't take much to be better than Corthia, considering Corthia was sold to us as the city of secrets. And I remember I was so ready for Corthia, and we ended up getting the taint of secrets, like maybe a bit oversized taint, but still, what secrets? Where were these things?
It was just a little bit extra Maw, to be honest, and the Maw was dog shit, so why the hell would you go on and make more Maw? Like, who asked for that?
But isn't it then, aren't we then almost at the point where we have to say that the developers are completely out of touch with the community? They don't seem to understand what the community wants versus what they think the community wants.
I wonder if it's an understanding or if it's a different philosophy behind it. Because you can't tell me that at this point in time they're not aware that people don't like the Covenant system as it is right now with the borrow power, that they're not aware of these problems, because the moment that they start dropping player base, all of a sudden these changes that we've been asking for were possible. And they're like, oh, look at all the cool stuff that we're adding. And it's like, you know damn well what it is that players are looking for. So why do you continue this philosophy? It might be arrogance. It might be this is our vision. It might be because their focus is more on keeping you online rather than entertaining you. There could be a lot behind it, but you know, who knows, right? We can't look behind those doors.
I mean, I like just throwing out that I know, and then I know a million different things, right? So I just speculate on a million different things and pretend all of it's real. Because I don't, for me personally, I'm looking at this and I just keep thinking it looks like developers that's not really interested in playing the game in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if you saw on Twitter. I don't know how active you are on Twitter. I see you tweeting every once in a while, but not. You don't seem to be like fully entrenched in the Twitter world.
Oh, I tried to be. Like, I tried to actually hold myself back, because if it were up to me, I would have Twitter installed on my phone. I had to remove it because I was so addicted to it.
So you did the right thing. You stepped away from the toxins. You were like, fuck this. I need some breaks here. But that Jessica Gonzalez, did you see that she left the company? Now, why she left the company, as I said, if she actually went through sexual harassment, the people responsible should be held to account. I think we've all made that clear. But she left Blizzard to go work at a financial company, right? And she said that's her dream position. It's like a position that she couldn't give up. And I just thought to myself, well, that kind of tells me everything I need to know about the developers at Blizzard Entertainment, considering that most game developers that I know, right, want to make video games, and sometimes will even take lower paying jobs in order to make video games. And I don't think that's true for at least some of the developers. I can't say majority, right, because I don't know. There might be the majority that still loves games. I know for a fact I spent time speaking to Terran Gregory. He plays WoW like crazy, right? Every single time I've ever spoken to him, he's on WoW playing. So it might be true, but at the same time, I think there are developers that's just, they're there to get it on their resume so that they can go, get a better job, the job that they actually want.
I mean, again, it's very much in the realm of speculation. Like I can't look behind those doors. But if I recall correctly, why she left was also the payment difference, as well as some of these changes that we're going to implement.
Yeah.
But knowing now how the atmosphere of Blizzard is, and knowing with like the walkouts and the seeming the higher ups not wanting to make these changes.
Yeah.
If I was a developer working for a company that allowed this kind of environment to happen. Like, I don't know if you saw the breast milk story the other day. Like, why would I give my 150% to make the best product if this is how the company treats me? Right?
No, I'm 100% with you there. When all of this broke, I said it's sort of an explanation for why WoW is in the state that it's in. You have developers that have to look over their shoulder 24/7, wondering when next someone's going to grab their fucking ass. Right?
It's really bizarre. But then, like, I don't know if that was in specifically in the Blizzard department, or if it was in because it was Activision Blizzard, so it's all their companies. But still, just seeing how their response has been to this whole shit show. that's been going down, and just seeing, instead of standing with their workers, the ones who make the product, the ones who make them their money, it seems to be more about, let's send out these letters. Like Bobby sending out a letter through his female.
Oh, that was
like, what the fuck?
dude, that was just like, fuck my life. Like, and then he goes, I made a mistake. I'm like, what fucking mistake?
Right?
Like, you did this. Like, this wasn't an oopsie, right? This was like, oh, I accidentally attached her name to it. He literally told her, send this on your name because I'm too much of a cunt.
And then he was like, "Oh, how dare you send that out?" Like he demolished it. It's like, you are such slimy. But then in the same report, you read how he made them 50 billion in profit. That you're like, that's a lot of money to remove out of your company. And honestly, I think he's gonna be able to do it on his own terms. I think he's gonna be like, oh, I can't change the system here, so I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah.
But again, this is like, we only see it from the outside, right?
Yep.
We are not part of the development team. I also remember how years and years people were like, Activision is poisoning the well and they're taking over. And then you talk to developers and they're like, now we still have the freedom. Now this is a conversation I had like 5 years ago, so who knows how that changed in between. But I can't say anything realistic and hard about it. All I can see is how it's perceived from the outside, just like anybody else.
Yeah. Sadly, that's all we have, right? Which is why I always tell every single one that watches my content, you should not live your life based on my fucking opinions and beliefs, because I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. I'm just here to entertain you fuckers, right? So we are looking, from the outside looking in, trying to make sense of this game. But let's move to a world where we're not actually talking about the developer specifically, but Azeroth as a whole, right? You made a very interesting point. In, like I said, the first time I ever rated you, you spoke about the what was your exact words again?
Unreliable narrator.
That's the one. The unreliable narrator. Expand on that. Like, what exactly are you saying when you say unreliable narrator?
Right. So the World of Warcraft or Warcraft universe is a fantasy story, and over the years, story gets changed, and they try different paths, different plans, and most of the time they'll have to make an effort in order to make it work.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, they came out with the Chronicles, and they sold it under the idea of, okay, we made so many changes and alterations. There's conflicting story out there. We're gonna clean this up.
Yeah.
We're gonna say, like, this is the truth. This is the foundation. This is what we're gonna be working with, and then we're gonna fill it in with this baseline.
Yes.
Cool, great. Fast forward a couple of years at BlizzCon, and now they come out with like, oh yeah, the Chronicles, they're really, really cool, but did you know that they're actually written from a perspective by the Titans? And it's like, no, they weren't. What are you talking about? It's a narrator point of view. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No. This is written by the Titans. So pretty much, it comes down to, you can throw it in the trash because it's tainted. It's from a point of view. Now, it's a bit drastic to say that because a lot of the Chronicles are still valid, but still. Yeah. Now they've taken even that a step further. In, I believe it was the Grimoire of the Shadowlands, in which we read a story from the point of view of a broker. They do like research into the Shadowlands, into the first ones. They talk a little bit about the information for Chronicles, and they tell the story from their point of view. Like in the Chronicles, for example, light and void are on top, whereas for the broker, it would be death and life that are on top, as an example.
Yes.
Now, that's all fine and dandy, and it's great to see a perspective of the broker. But in essence, that book is worthless. Because it's not the truth. It's their truth. And they might use elements from it. But it just comes down to the idea of whatever story you're being presented, you always got to keep in the back of your mind, it's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
It's prone to change. Now, the Warcraft story has been altered and changed over the years. Retcons, as they say. But usually they keep it on a small scale. Usually they try to be delicate about it. But if you do the unreliable narrator, you don't have a foundation to be delicate about. It's just, it's wobbly. It doesn't matter anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's not solid. So say that the broker says the first ones are the ones who brought order to the cosmos. They brought the cosmos together. They created everything.
Yeah.
That's the broker's truth. Now in comes a Nobbel who says, no, the first ones don't actually exist. And your argument is the same because they have the same value.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, this is actually so I said specifically about the Grimoire of the Shadowlands, the story in World of Warcraft as it stands right now. There's no foundation left. If you think about how many videos were inspired on the Chronicles, right? Just I made probably 100 videos just on one chapter in the Chronicles when we still believed that it was the truth, right? Because it was the Bible. We were told that this is the word of God. This is how it is. Now we are in this place where you can say that the first ones don't exist. I can say they do exist. The brokers can say that they exist, but in this way. And all of us are basically saying, well, we have to wait and see what comes out, right? Because we don't actually know. We have no idea. And
it just
go.
It just devalues the work that they're trying to point out. Because how exactly are you going to sell a book that's unreliable narrator? Like, why would anyone be interested in that?
I mean, okay, so Steve Danuser, before the the Grimoire of the Shadowlands came out, he said, if you love speculation, you are going to love this book. Yeah? I think I made 4 videos on the Grimoire of the Shadowlands.
Damn. Okay. I thought you were into speculation. Come on now. Do 100. Let's go.
The problem is it doesn't actually provide anything. It just says a bunch of stuff and then sort of just goes, we don't have enough information yet, right? Or it gives us information that we've already known, but now just in paper. So it doesn't provide. The Chronicles provided so much because it actually told someone in my chat the other day actually said this perfectly. World of Warcraft creates mystery by just not telling you. Mm-hmm. So that's their idea of mystery writing. It's not like I'm giving you everything and you just have to guess how it ends. No, I'm not even giving you anything, right? I'm just giving you a couple of names and you have to guess how it goes and then how it ends. Because
it just seems that at some point they did the Whispers of Ilgynoth, which hit off in the speculation community, and we were like, oh, what do these whispers mean? Yeah. And then they did another set of whispers, and they did another set of whispers, and then they were like, you know what? What if we just write the entire story as if they were Whispers of Ilgynoth? As in, we'll leave open sentences, multiple interpretations. We'll just keep it as vague as possible and keep people invested that way. And it doesn't work. Like you can make mystery and intrigue, and you can have room for speculation, but there needs to be a foundation to work on. Yeah. Knowing at this point in time that we still don't know what broke the Arbiter, we still don't know how the Jailer managed to convince Sylvanas to join his side. We still don't know how Devils got to his side. His motivations. Bolvar in 9.2 says we don't know what the Jailer's planning, but let's go stop him.
Yeah.
We know that he wants to unmake the universe and make Dev rule it all, but exactly what does that mean? Like, is he going to insert anything here? Like, there is so much story not told, and it doesn't create intrigue; it creates frustration.
I'll actually one-up you on the things that we do not know. We still do not know what the deal between Helia and Sylvanas was, and this happened 3 expansions back, right?
Oh, for that fucking lantern. Yeah, that's a storyline. But then again, that really feels like a storyline that never came to be, because Sylvanas Legion is completely different from Sylvanas Battle for Azeroth. Yeah,
but the problem is not even that. So here's where I tell you, your narrator equivalency, or the idea that you have about the untrustworthy narrator actually goes much deeper than that. So the current story for Sylvanas that we're sold right now is that Sylvanas was basically always fucked, right? She was always like this evil bitch, the kind of, since she met Zuval after throwing herself off the top of Ice Cream Citadel, right? But that's not true. Actually, since she was stabbed with Frostmourne, that's when she was the evil bitch. But that's not true. Anyone that knows the story of Sylvanas knows that she had more mood swings than most people have in a lifetime. Because after she got stabbed and she got her free will, she was sort of, one could say, quite the ends justify the means evil kind of character, kind of just want to kill Arthas no matter what. Then she throws herself off the type of Ice Crown Citadel. And then she changes. She actually starts caring about the Forsaken. She starts caring about them as her people. She starts trying to make a better life for themselves. In Legion, she even fights side by side with Varian. And Before the Storm has this line where Sylvanas looks back at the beach where Varian dies. And she's actually sad because she can't help but think that this is the final moments of a great warrior. And then suddenly in BFA, she goes, well, screw it all. We'll just burn it all down. And now they're saying, well, actually, she's always been kind of broken because her soul was always split. And it's like, wait a second, but your own story doesn't actually back up that analysis.
I'd argue with that one, to be honest. Like you mentioned how Sylvanas was always mood swings. And while the living Ranger Sylvanas definitely had flaws, I believe in Edge of Night, she looks back at herself and she's like, oh, I was so vain and this and that.
Yeah.
Comparing her to the Banshee Queen, so the Banshee that Arthas turned her into, being brought back in on death is always a transformation. You never come back fully as you were, be it a split soul, be it whatever. So to compare Windrunner Sylvanas to the Banshee Sylvanas, those are different entities, which is also now reflected in her living side looking at her undead side and be like, what the hell did I become? So on that point, I would definitely argue that Arthas has a big impact on what she became as a Banshee rather than what she was in life. Then throughout her storyline, she was always very much of, I will do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah.
Prime example be the Wrathgate, but you could just look around in, Lordaeron, in Undercity, you can look around and see what the Forsaken are doing.
Yeah.
They weren't exactly, they weren't exactly angels, but that was the cool part about the Forsaken, doing whatever they did to get justice for the injustice that was done upon them. Not caring about the Horde, not caring about the Alliance, just do whatever they needed to get it done.
Yeah.
So that was always part of it. When she was brought back as an ally of Soval, did she suddenly change? The argument about caring for the Forsaken is interesting, because I've heard quite a few Forsaken fans. They were like, my Banshee Queen is everything. But from my point of view, Sylvanas never really cared about the Forsaken. She cared more about claiming vengeance, and getting the Forsaken together was the way to do that.
Yeah. But there's that moment, I think it's outside Gilneas, where Garrosh instructs her, he orders her to send the Forsaken through the hole in the wall, right? And it's going to be a massacre. It's going to be an absolute fucking bloodbath. But he's basically saying, let them be the shield that takes the brunt of the action here. And in that moment, she sort of recounts she has always viewed the Forsaken as but an arrow in her quiver. But that's changed. She no longer views them as just a simple arrow. They are her people. So there's definitely a change in how she views them. Whether she now likes them, that's obviously up for debate. But the book does make it seem like there is a marked difference in how she views them now.
Yes, I mean you're 100% right. They turned from her arrows in a quiver into a bulwark against the infinite, because back then her motivation was not the Jailor. The Jailor is new. Her motivation back then was to stay out of hell no matter the cost. And if Garrosh was going to throw those Forsaken away, she would have less troops standing between her and hell, pretty much. Now, if there's an affinity towards the Forsaken, not so much. They were still her tools. They were still her weapons of war. Rather, she would not let them be expended. Rather, they'd just be around her as a little shield wall, right?
Yeah.
But you do make a fair point that with Legion, and especially with her becoming the war chief, they played more into the storyline of her relationship with the Forsaken. Like, the council was formed, the Forsaken were wondering, like, what exactly is our purpose? We've done all this for the Banshee Queen, we got our revenge, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
What an amazing storyline to dive into. How do the Forsaken feel towards the Banshee Queen? And they just threw that to the side in order to put her up as, I'm going to make Garrosh look like an amateur. And it almost seems like somebody got afraid and they looked at the reaction and they were like, oh snap, people really don't like this. Okay, steer the car around. We're not going to make her a Garrosh. Instead, we'll make her whatever the hell she's become now. A not serving allied to the Jailor, the one responsible for the Lich King. Are you kidding me? Sylvanas Windrunner working for the one responsible for the Lich King, and don't even try to sell me on the idea of she didn't know. All you have to do is look at fucking Zovaal and be like, oh yeah, that's Frostmourne.
Yeah.
Like, not even an inkling of an idea of, oh yeah, that's the one responsible for the Lich King. And I would have understood the idea of, okay, her choice is either she's gonna get tormented for the rest of eternity, or she works with him.
Yeah.
That is okay, fair enough. I would make the same decision if the devil tells me I'll get you out of hell if you do all these bad stuff. I'm sorry, I'm gonna make the deal with the devil.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not the good guy. But that's the problem. That's not her motivation, because she thought there was going to be some grand old big scheme that Zovaal was going to bring about, and everybody was going to be free and happy and great.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you put her on this path?
I will go so far as to say this was never the planned path.
Oh, fuck no, it wasn't.
I actually have evidence of this. Ian was asked at a BlizzCon what's going to happen with Sylvanas. I believe it was the one where they announced either Battle for Azeroth or where they announced Shadowlands. What's going to happen with Sylvanas? And Ian said straightforward, can you ever imagine Sylvanas being captured and sorry for the things that she had done? So no, this is definitely not Garrosh 2.0. Instead, kinda is. She's captured, she is sorry, she is gonna probably be tortured or at least punished for the crimes that she had committed. This is Garrosh 2.0, and Ian actively said this is not Garrosh 2.0. So I think there was a rapid rewrite that happened somewhere like just after or just before 9.1. I think Blizzard realized their story isn't hitting. It's not hitting. The audience is rejecting the story. And rather than do what you need to do in those situations is dig deep and figure out why the audience isn't digging the story, they do what they always do, which is give up, right? Fuck it, screw it. Just write it off. We'll kill Zovaal. Do you actually think that Zovaal was meant to die in this expansion?
Well, to go back to the time frame, like, I agree that this was not the ultimate path for Sylvanas, but to put it at 9.1, my counter argument would be that the Split Soul storyline has been built up with Uther since 9.0 with the Afterlife short. So if they weren't planning on going with the Split Soul storyline, why build it up in that direction?
No, I think the Split Soul storyline is still there. I think Sylvanas' soul was always going to be split. I just don't think so. There's a number of things that I could have done differently with a split soul story. So, for example, the player meets the other part of Sylvanas' soul, so discovers it. Not Zovaal restores it, but we discover it. And we realize that this part of Sylvanas has no idea what, bitch Sylvanas has been doing, to quote Garrosh, this whole fucking time, right? And so we actually realize, whoa, if we can restore this Sylvanas, we'll take a major instrument off the battlefield for Zovaal, right? So there's
I fucking hate that storyline. Sorry, I hate that idea.
That's fine, but I think it's better than the one we have now. Because what I don't like about the one now is it's forced.
I mean, it's a low bar, and it's a low bar to have better than we have now, though.
No, true. I mean, obviously, I didn't have much time to think of this, right? This is just off the top of my head. If you gave me half an hour, I could probably come up with an even better storyline. My issue is, at least that one is enforced, right? At least that one is sort of a choice that the player can make, and you can either build the Loyalist campaign back into it, right? Where the Loyalists actually go, no, we're not going to help restore the Ranger General. We're instead going to go off on our own fucking quest and do our own thing, right? Whatever the case might be, you could do something with it. Whereas this one, not only do I as the player feel forced in this regard, the story feels forced. It doesn't feel like this is a natural thing. In 4 minutes and 34 seconds, Sylvanas goes from crying about all the things that Bad Banshee has done to, I must be punished for what I've done, even though she didn't do shit, right?
But what the idea behind it is more so because you're talking about restoring her, like the soul bit, like the way that you described about bringing her soul back, and that would instantly change Sylvanas. I think that also falls with the problem of the whole soul split didn't need to happen. They already gave Sylvanas plenty of motivation to step away from the jailer, be it the Navanos is kept away from her storyline, and when talking to her. It's not like she didn't have doubts or worries about the path that she was on. And then the Moment Supreme at the Tower of Torghast, where at the top she's like, I will never serve, as bullshit as it is, she did make the choice to step away from Zovaal.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the purpose of now restoring her soul? Because the idea is that Ranger General looks at the monster that she's become, and she's like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
But she already had that realization, so it was not needed.
So you would actually prefer a story where Dark Lady remains the main character, but just realizes I've allowed myself to go too far. So rather more a natural sort of step back from the brink kind of thing, rather than this the other soul is now gonna save the character.
I mean, if it was up to me, this storyline would never have happened. First of all, if I would have given Sylvanas the role of Bolvar in this expansion. If anyone would have been a powerful ally against the jailer, it would have been her, rather than her an ally to the jailer. It's fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't see it as the Windrunner soul wakes up. I see it more as she becomes whole again, and she reflects on the choices she made. And her past self sees the one that she's become, and that will give her some sort of introspect, some sort of revelation, like, oh no, what have I become? I'm going to set things right.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think that was needed. What would I have done in this situation? I probably just kill her off in Torghast, to be honest. Like, what is better? Having a Sylvanas that goes, I will never serve, despite everybody and the mother seeing that she was serving all this time.
Yep.
And just going down with the ship, because she had a motivation. She had a reason to join with Zovaal.
Yeah.
And so far, we don't know that motivation. So we don't know what she has given up.
Yeah.
All we know is that she stepped away because she was suddenly reminded about being servant. Even though she has been serving him.
Yeah. I mean, they're so confident in that line, they're using it again in 9.2.
It's one of her click lines. I will never serve. It's like, you are really proud of this, aren't you?
That's why I told you, I think they're out of touch. I think Steve Danuser sees the player base making memes about his game, and he thinks memes mean they must like it. Right? Because, I mean, fuck. They're twice now that they've used things that the player base clearly rejects, and they've gone, nope. Must be good. Special water. We're gonna fucking use it again as literally one of the first lines you get in 9.2, right? So I don't know. For me personally, so I'll actually concede to you here, and I'll say at this point with the Sylvanas that they've created, I actually might see a world in which they wanted to kill her off, and then they decided to change it because the story wasn't working. The story that they wanted to kill her off with wasn't going anywhere. People weren't buying it. And someone told me yesterday in chat they've heard rumors that Patty Metzen wants to step away from voice acting. Which I don't know. Patty Metzen loves being Sylvanas, so I don't know if maybe...
I mean, rumors at all. And even if she did, they could always replace, right?
Yeah, they could always just say, no, now that she's the Ranger General, she has a new voice or some shit, right? Get someone else to play it. So there is ways of probably working around that. But I genuinely, I agree with you here. I think they had a plan for where they wanted to go. They realized the player base isn't buying it. They did a quick rewrite to a thing that the player base now is even buying less. Because it's a quick rewrite.
Yeah, and towards Blizzard, like I the other day I was watching all the interviews that I've done. Yes, I was Googling myself. And we were talking about, okay, what could they do with... And I was like, and we were talking about, like, what could they do with Sylvanas? And it was already going to be really difficult, because they should have never put her in the forefront. Let's be fair. Sylvanas works best from the background, doing whatever it takes to be done. She should have never been made war chief. And when they did make a war chief for some weird ass reason, because I remember the Legion presentation, where all of a sudden Sylvanas was the one on the ship. This was before Vol'jin was replaced, by the way.
Yep.
They just pushed Vol'jin aside, and all of a sudden Sylvanas is the main character. And you go through this story arc in which she tries to get more Valkyr, which apparently was not needed because she was already in league with the Jailer, and she managed to break out of the Maw anyways. Even though everybody can break out of the Maw, yet nothing escapes the Maw. It's like,
oh my god,
okay.
Don't even fucking get me started on that, because apparently the Maw isn't that hard to escape.
No, only the Jailer's trapped in there for some reason, but even he is not really trapped in there.
No, he can still come and go as much as he wants, so fuck that.
He can still shoot out chains, like he can still drag, he can expand, he can grow his base, he can envelop Orbos. The Maw can do whatever the fuck it wants.
Exactly. So it's like, oh my god, Steve Danuser just doesn't think. I feel sorry for people like Sean Copeland, right? Who you know, they do this. They do this for a like, they are the historians of World of Warcraft, right? And they're somehow just, I think, ignored. Because surely they must know, hey, didn't we call this place inescapable?
It already faulted at day one, where it's like, how did Sylvanas get out there then? Like, what?
Yeah, everything in this story just is such it feels convoluted for no reason whatsoever. It feels like they're trying to write this almost Tolkien level story, right? But one of the nice things, actually one of the best things about Tolkien, is the simplicity with which the world makes sense. It's not a convoluted story, right? But then you go into World of Warcraft, split souls, multiple dimensions, there's multiple fucking death realms, even though we just see 4, and it kind of makes sense that there would only be 4, but there are more. We just don't see them. What is the in-between?
Alternate characters are robes that come together, and they are judged as one being, even though we know that one Garrosh is a really good war chief and one's really bad, yet both of them get complete tortured. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like the only thing that I think they did correct in Shadowlands for me is Denathrius was written perfectly.
A lot of people really like Denathrius, huh? I've seen so many people. I wish Denathrius was like my end boss.
So here's why I think Denathrius worked. I'm not saying he's the best villain ever, because that, for me, will almost always go to Arthas. I think Arthas was one of the best written villains World of Warcraft has ever had. Because you sort of hated him, but also loved him at the same time.
Arthas was brilliantly done, and they didn't fuck it up in Wrath of the Lich King. That's a huge plus.
Oh yeah, they to the end, his final words, "Father, is it over?" immediately made you emotional again, right? Because you realize this guy has just been through torture, which now apparently he's happy to help the Jailer enslave Anduin. Fuck knows how
apparently
that goes,
so. Right? Yeah, that's another thing. Like, a lot of people been asking what happened to Arthas' soul. So over at Blizzard, they were like, you know, Arthas is a really beloved character. Yep. You should really be delicate about this. You know what? Fuck it. We'll put him in as gem slot.
Yeah, he's a gem. He's a gem in the Jailer's sword. That's what he is. That's what
Arthas is. He's gonna show up in one fight, and that's it. Enjoy.
Oh my god, dude! But okay, so that was Denathrius' success, as far as I'm concerned, is he was the only Eternal one that actually featured throughout his own questing. So if you quested in Revendreth, you had almost directly to do with Denathrius from the beginning to the end. You were dealing with his shit. So by the time players finished Revendreth, you knew who Denathrius was, right? You knew that he was the bad guy. You saw what bad shit he was doing. When you finish Ardenweald, you see the Winter Queen twice. Once she fucking ghosts you, right? Just straight up ghosts you, and you're meant to like her. The Primus isn't even there. He's just fucking gone. You don't deal with him at all, right? And the Archon...
Primus didn't even bother showing up.
Yeah. So is it any wonder, right, that players just look at this and think, yeah, it's only Denathrius really that I can care about in this story, because I don't know who else really features. I don't know who else really matters. And then of course you have the Sylvanas storyline, which I always say Steve Danuser did what a lot of bad D&D dungeon masters do, is they allow for so much rule of cool that it ends up destroying the entire game. Because eventually the game makes no sense. Because everyone's rule of cool was just fucking implemented. They went for these big moments. Burn the tree. All right, but how are you going to deal with the tree after it's been burnt? No, we'll redeem her. How the fuck do you redeem someone from that? Like, how are you bringing this character back?
Are they going for a redemption story, though? Are they? Like, I've seen a lot of people make that conclusion after the cutscene, but surely that's not the path they got in mind, right? Like, they do acknowledge in the cutscene itself, like, there is no coming back from this. All you can do now is move forward and take action. I actually really liked it about that cutscene, because comparable to the Tyrande one, where they just keep poking at something that's a really big deal, and they're like, fuck it, we'll just forgive and forget. We'll go for renewal instead of vengeance, because reasons. I actually like that a whole lot more in the Sylvanas cutscene, because they do acknowledge, like, look, there's fuck all you can do about this. All you can do now is try to do better moving forward.
Yeah, but that is in itself sort of redemption, you know? Because it's sort of like, you know, yeah, you're going to get punished, but we'll play with you again in the future, you know? So it's not quite the sort of... It's sort of like Fundrick says it perfect here. It's sort of not. It's sort of like, you know, I don't think it's the end that most people wanted, but I do have a tip here from someone who asks straight up. He wants to know, do we think that Sylvanas should die? Will or should die?
I mean, they could, like I said, if we are in this story right now, just kill her off, let her stick with the jailer and the plans and the ideals that she had, but that's not where we are. We are now further beyond.
Yeah.
Say that they do just, okay, she wakes up and they kill her. What do you feel after that? Do you feel anything about that? No. The moments have passed. You had your Tyrande Sylvanas confrontation.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they didn't give it to Tyrande. You had your Torghast confrontation. Sorry, yeah?
I need to ask you about that. I forgot completely about that. Okay, so here's where that cinematic makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Tyrande says, my life for the Banshee Queen, right? She makes that deal and Elune gives her all the power to fly after Sylvanas. Then Elune removes the power, right? Before she can kill Sylvanas, because death for Sylvanas would mean death for Tyrande.
That's an assumption, but okay.
Yeah, assuming, because why else would she remove the power in that moment? But then she goes to the Winter Queen, right? And there she says, well, that's up to Tyrande. She has a choice to make, whether she lives or dies. And it's like, well, wait, what? Like, she made a choice. You said no. Now she can make a choice. I don't like. Wait, can she only make the choice if it's the right choice? In which case, she doesn't really have a choice. What the fuck are you doing?
No, that's just because that whole thing, and that falls down to if we just keep her story vague, we don't actually have to tell it. Because Elune also makes mention that she had some kind of influence with Teldrassil. We don't know fuck all what she did and why. Why the fuck, Blizzard, would you even have Elune come close to that? But regardless, in the case of Tyrande, if we go with the idea of Elune was the one who drew her powers back, that means that Elune actively can affect Ardenweald. But we know that she can't, because she just sent souls to the Shadowlands, who ended up in a Maw, and she had no idea about it.
Yeah.
Even though Tyrande, as the Night Warrior, has walked through Torghast as the Night Warrior. So if she could see through Tyrande's eyes, and she know those moments, I would argue that Elune does not directly interfere. So the idea of Elune was the one who did not let her get the kill is off the table. We know that Tyrande desperately wanted to get the kill because she was ready to give her life. So it's not Tyrande that took her powers off the table. So ultimately, it comes down to her batteries just ran out at the wrong moment.
Okay.
That's the only reasoning I can give that makes somewhat kind of sense.
So you're basically arguing she wasn't strong enough anymore to sustain that level of power from Elune.
Exactly. Because otherwise I can't see a reason for it. And then they put her in the most amazing power nap anyone has ever given. And once she woke up from the power nap, she was like, I don't really want to kill Sylvanas anyways. You know,
forgiveness now.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day. You know, I've been spending the last 2 expansions trying to get her.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling like I'm good for renewal.
I mean, the level of up and down. Did you see Pyromonster's meltdown on Danuser? Did you not watch it?
No, I heard rumors about it.
Okay, it was epic. You should have seen it. Like
It was epic. All right.
He went fucking ballistic. Like I've never seen him that angry, and I've seen the boy angry before, but he was fucking. There was a couple of things that I disagreed with. For example, he started attacking WoW content creators, where I was like, dude, let people do what the fuck they're gonna do, right? But anyways, he was very angry, and his anger basically stemmed from exactly this. You try to make sense of a story that doesn't even seem like the developers are trying to make sense of the story.
It's like the Toronto one is where I disconnected, where I was like, I'm done. I'm done with your Shadowlands storytelling. I'm done caring about Sylvanas. I'm done caring. At this point in time, I'm just sitting back and I'm watching the train wreck unfold. The Toronto moment just killed me. And then you hear in other videos where they're just like, oh, you need to listen better and you'll understand the storylines. Like, fuck that noise. They're telling it in such a vague way, such a multiple interpretable way. Similar with the recent release Sylvanas cutscene. Just seeing how people are like, wait, is Windrunner gonna be completely different? Means that you fucked up. Means that you did not tell your story properly.
There's too many if, buts, and maybes here for anyone to ever follow the story in any way, shape, or form, right? There's just too many if, buts, and maybes. I actually heard someone the other day say, we can't judge the story because we don't know how it's gonna end. And I was like, no, that's not true. I can absolutely... I've watched movies before where half an hour in I go, this is a fucking bullshit movie. I don't care if it ends well. It's shit right now. I'm not sitting through another hour of this. I'm done watching. And it's just kind of like, wait, but... Okay, so I mean, I don't want to start like getting into the WoW player base because I do think there's a lot of people on Hopium right now that is basically trying to salvage the story in whichever way they can, right? Twisting it however it can. I mean,
people enjoy what they enjoy. Like, if people truly are like, this story makes sense to me and I enjoy it, then all the power to you. I can only speak from my point of view and my truths. And I'm looking at the Tyrande storyline and the Sylvanas storyline, and I'm like, this is fucking bullshit.
Yeah. I think I need to ask you about this, and I already think I know exactly how you're going to respond. What was your feels about the new Crowns of Wills? Like, how do you like?
Honestly, I don't feel as strong as people on the internet do, because I've seen the Burger King memes and I've seen they're like, what did they do to my poor helmet of domination? I don't have strong feelings about it. I'm like, well, you know, it looks new. I guess it's a thing. I guess we overcame domination, you know. What I do wonder is why the fuck like they announced it in a way that we needed to save Anduin in order to overcome the domination of the Jailor, right?
Yeah.
However, they also established that it was the Primus who invented domination language. So wouldn't the guy who invented the thing, wouldn't he be more knowledgeable about all of this? No? I mean, you could argue that the Jailor may have turned his weapons against him and improved upon it, but maybe it would be nice if you could actually show that in-game.
Yeah, but here's my problem. Even if the Jailor improved upon it, the Primus is said to never have lost a battle. He is a master.
Oh my god, yes!
Statistician, right? He's a master strategist. He is able to see all fucking truths. So
he's captured.
If like first, yeah, he's captured. Like, guess he didn't see that fucking one coming, right? And then for some reason, he's not smart enough to figure out what the Jailor did to his domination magic. Like, we need to go ask Anduin. Why Anduin? Like, bro. And then he can make the helm. Of course, he's making the helm again. My big problem with the Crown of Wills is the fact that we already have one. Where's that one? Why didn't we just go fetch that one? The last time we heard about it, Sylvanas had it in her possession. So we could go scour the earth for that one. Because this one is now a new Crown of Wills. Did we forget about the old Crown of Wills?
I've forgotten about that crown. What crown are we talking about?
There was a Crown of Wills. Now, I don't know if this was in the RP or in the story, actually. So this is where I could be wrong. But Sylvanas sent the ogres to look for this crown, and one of the ogres actually donned the crown, and then just went fucking ballistic. People in chat are saying it's actually a quest line. So, and that was literally called the Crown of Wills.
Lol.
Wow,
come on, let's be fair. It's not a one-on-one comparison, right?
No, probably not, right? But at the same time, well, actually, that helm, the Crown of Wills, was meant to stop any domination from Arthas. Like, it made you completely immune to mind control. That's why Sylvanas wanted that the
But
crown.
come on, that was Arthas. Come on, you gotta stay on board with the WoW lore now. Don't question it. That was Arthas. This is the Jailor. That's minimum +10 to domination. Come on now.
Okay. I'll concede. This is strong domination. Arthas wasn't strong enough. We need another Crown of Wills. Okay, no fucking problem. The Primus wasn't showcased at all as what he is, right? What did we see from the Primus? Like, honestly.
Oh, dude. I thought that whole being captured thing was going to be like 5D chess, because if there's anybody out there that would be able to predict movement happening, because the Primus was able to predict that the Jailor was going to turn his chains into a weapon, he was going to predict that the Eternal Ones needed to stand together, blah blah blah, he was able to leave messages behind, he was able to predict all these things, and yet he was captured some way, somehow, not shown. I thought that was going to be part of his plan, but no. It was actually like, oh yeah, that was never supposed to happen. Like, what?
No. And then also, he couldn't figure out that if he helps the player make legendary items, at some point, we're gonna arrive there. Like, he doesn't figure that out. But of course, his memories were stolen, so that makes sense now.
Yeah, but like the whole memory thing as well, there's names. I wonder if those memories were brought back with the names, if they were actually connected to him. Like, did he party with the Titans before? Is that how he learned to cruise the time ways and check out his little theories? But also unexplained.
I mean, the problem with World of Warcraft right now is that almost nothing gets explained.
Yeah.
I found out the other day. I don't know, how entrenched are you in Warhammer lore?
None at all.
Yeah, I've only dabbled in Warhammer lore, and from what I've dabbled, it's insane. Like, that world is crazy. But I found out that, so the original runes on the original Frostmourne in the cinematic for Arthas in Wrath of the Lich King, those runes were literally Warhammer runes. Yeah, you can actually go look for the runes. We had an entire podcast on the runes and what they mean. Because in Warhammer, their entire runic language, every rune has a meaning and the player is told exactly what the meaning is of the rune.
Right.
And I just sat there and I thought to myself, why don't we have... That's what the Grimoire of the Shadowlands should have fucking been. Like, there should have been a chapter where they break down what these runes of domination mean. Like, what every single one of these domination runes mean. And I know this is a small thing, and for a lot of players this would not matter. But if you're going to tell a cohesive story, those little things are what makes the big things happen. Because the problem with WoW is there's so many loose ends in this. You said you lost faith in the story at Tyrande.
I mean, the faith has been lost a while ago. I checked out with Tyrande. Tyrande was my breaking point as well. I was like, this is just... Like, regardless of the speculation of who exactly Elune was, like, I know there was speculation about the Titans or their own being or whatever, but just the way that they handled the burning of Teldrassil and Tyrande's reaction to it, it doesn't make sense. It feels like they had a patch in mind where we were dealing with the domain of life, and that was going to be Tyrande's arc in trying to learn, like, okay, I need to go to renewal. And instead, they once again fuck around with a moment which they don't need to be fucking around with, and they just do not give what it deserves, like, at all. The Night Elves are just a punching bag, and it's so dog shit.
I mean, there's at this point, I would say there's a couple of races in World of Warcraft that's basically been completely forgotten.
Oh yeah.
The incredible story. I mean, the Night Elves are one of the oldest. Actually, yeah, it's the second oldest race on Azeroth. They should be a lot more prominent than what they are. Specifically considering that their fucking home was burnt down to start this whole story. Why is it like? I mean, I'll tell you why I think this. I think a lot of things were cut from the story. The inclusion of Baine in the Shadowlands.
Oh, Bane. Really, do you think Bane was added more? Because my argument is, in beta times, I don't know if you saw that, in beta times, we didn't even rescue Bane. He just showed up, and it was like, oh yeah, the jailer didn't want to play with this, so I kind of took out the trash. That already instilled a feeling of, oh, they don't like Bane, huh?
Exactly. But for me, it was just like the dude, he's in Shadowlands, he's in the cinematics, but he sits on the fucking steps the whole time. Like, he does nothing. the ladies are working their asses off. Bolvar is just basically being pushed around. He just needs to do what the ladies tell him.
And so many characters get hit with the dumbstick as well. Like, fucking hell. Just to make the story work. Bolvar, let's go take this sigil into the Primus's lair. Or into the Jailor's lair. It's like, oh, that's a great idea.
I can tell you ahead of time this is a fucking problem, but hey, let's do this. I'm just the fucking player. I'm not supposed to say shit here.
Just go with the flow.
Yeah. But no, I think Baines' story may have been cut. I think they realized they don't really have... Because why else... I would personally have replaced Bane with Malfurion. And I would have given Malfurion actual story here. Because consider the fact that his people are the ones suffering, right? And
the Windrunner sisters?
The Windrunner sisters could have been here, considering it's their sister causing a lot of this shit. I find it astounding that Tyrande, the love of his life, is missing... And the dude's drinking tea. Taking a nap or some shit. I don't know, but he's not there. Her daughter is there, right? But where's Malfurion? What's he doing?
I guess leading their people, but they could have easily reversed that, right?
Yeah, they could have left the daughter there and have Malfurion, because Malfurion is actually, I would say if there's anyone that needs to be angry about World of Warcraft storytelling, it's fans of Malfurion. That guy one of the biggest. So I would love to get your thoughts on this. So this is my thinking around what Steve Danuser is doing. This is the equivalent for me of the kid not wanting to play with anyone else's toys.
Jesus.
Right? Steve Danuser came in and he inherited a bunch of toys from Metzen and from, Afrigiabi and those guys. And he's just like, I don't want to play with these toys. These are not my toys. Fuck it. I'll kill off all the toys so that I can make my own new toys. Because Malfurion could probably... Maybe he wouldn't, kill Zuvul, but he'd be a fucking strong ally in a fight against Zuvul, considering how powerful he really is. And him and Tyrande together could actually be very useful here. He just seems to want to finish all of these stories as quickly as possible so that he can stop making his own fucking toys.
Okay, well, I would just wonder why he keeps dipping his hands in the toy chest then, because he didn't have to credit Zovale with everything ever, and that's a major complaint and a major failure of the Shadowlands. Like, Zovale has just been poorly received and apparently has done everything ever. What the fuck? But in the case of Danuser and the team behind it, by the way, you said that Malfurion fans have the most reason to be mad. I mean, there's quite a few fans out there for different races, different characters that should be upset with Shadowlands, like all of us together, to be honest.
True. I think Orcs or Horde should be the most pissed off. Well, actually, I would say the Alliance must be the most pissed off. They've basically, for the last decade of World of Warcraft, only had story whenever the Horde does something. Like, they don't do much on their own.
Yet on the other hand, the Horde just constantly gets told that they're the bad guy, and they shouldn't let their leaders get into power. Like, we've done that storyline twice now. Come on.
Yep. I mean, look, I remember watching an interview with Chris Metzen where he spoke about the difficulties of World of Warcraft, saying that you have these two factions and you have to be so careful to write them as neither is good or bad, right? Mm-hmm. They're basically just different and do different things. They do bad stuff, they do good stuff, but they're basically the same in that regard. Ever since, let's call it modern day WoW, it's almost clear that the Horde is the bad guy. Like, every single bad thing that happens is because some Horde fucking war chief decided to do something. They play musical chair with the Horde war chiefs. That is the one job. Your insurance must be off the charts when you become the fucking war chief of the Horde. Because your basic... Vol'jin didn't even last a fucking year. Like, not even a single expansion.
Oh, poor Vol'jin.
He did nothing.
May he rest in his little potling and become better than ever before.
Hopefully his story comes back, right? Hopefully. But
he's
then
napping. I mean...
Yeah, he's becoming a lower now. Right? That, by the way...
Like...
Yeah, no. Assuming?
Assuming that he's gonna become a Loa. Yeah, I was about to say, like, he could have played a really cool part in bringing Enderman back, being the Loa Kings and all, but
Yeah.
guess that's not gonna be a thing.
But there's also another thing here that I don't know if we're going to explore it eventually, maybe never. But the whole Loa storyline, it's introduced. It sort of ends as abruptly as it fucking starts. We know that the Winter Queen doesn't actually like the Loa. She makes it very clear that the Loa's problems is not the problems of Autumnweald, and she doesn't want anything to do with it.
Does she mean Loa or Bonsandi?
Well, she kind of made it sound as if it's all of it. Like, she definitely doesn't like Bonsandi, but she also doesn't seem to care too much about the Loa.
Okay.
Now, it could be that it's just a Bonsandi thing, in which case I would again say not great writing, because it's very sort of either or in that regard.
Has potential, like you can dive into why. I actually really liked the Bonsandi development that this expansion gave, like learning how he was a priest before and the Muzala dealings. But there is something between him and the Winter Queen. Is he just upset because he has his own little corner in her domain, or is it something else?
Was there a love story that maybe went south? Because it seems like a lover's quarrel between the two. Because she treats him with a lot of disdain. She clearly doesn't fucking like him. No, I had no problem with Bonsandi. I love the storyline. I love learning more about the Loa. Because let's be honest, the Loa, for me, would be, like, at least in my top 5 favorite things in World of Warcraft, with the Old Gods being number 1. But there was so little. There was a little sort of piece of their story, and then just nothing else happened with it.
And only if you join the Night Fae, by the way. It's not even for everybody.
Yeah, it's only the Night Fae that gets that story, which we could talk about the Covenant system to death, because the fact that Blizzard, to this day, refuses to fully let go of the Covenant system it boggles my mind.
It's like I had a brilliant comparison moment with 14. At some point, they ask you to decide between one of the 3 factions, and I asked in chat, like, will this matter? Like, will I get a specific storyline or whatnot? And they're like, no, it's just for titles and transmogs. Like, fuck, this is amazing. I could just pick whatever one resonates with me, and I'll still get the full game. Yes. Fantastic.
You pick one of the city-states, and that's basically just for PvP. Like, all the city-state questing sends you into the PvP zones to go do shit, right? And you can swap whenever the fuck you feel like it as well. So it doesn't really matter, but it still feels meaningful because you still have that choice in front of you and you go, which one do I like most? I chose Limsa Lominsa because he doesn't want to be a fucking pirate, you know? But again, you know, it doesn't really, like, it matters, but it doesn't matter in the ways that it sort of becomes a deterrent to playing the video game.
Exactly. And the moment we saw this on the betas, and they've been told time and time again, at the very least they should have disconnected the power gains, but also story-wise, or at the very least make it easier to swap around. And they were just like, no, this is the system we're going to put in. Well, they saw the shit show that went down. And then the moment that the players started dropping, they were like, okay, we'll pull the ripcord, but not really, because it's still a pain in the ass to swap around. Like, I don't know about you, but I couldn't really be bothered leveling up my full Covenant. Even the one, I couldn't be arsed with it.
I tried during beta to do all of them. I got to 2, and then I was like, fuck, I can't do this leveling thing again. It takes too long. There's so much RP.
I played through them. I played through all of them, but just the whole anima grind and soul binds and that.
No, I've played each of their, I would say, story, because on the PTR you could sort of skip quite a lot of it, and you could, like, I didn't see, but I saw the stories, so I eventually saw all of their stories. But if you're gonna ask me to level 4 characters and grind out 4 characters, no, I don't want to play the game that way. So no, I gave up on that very early on. But I will say I gave up on playing WoW quite early on as well. Like, as soon as I realized this is basically more of what I disliked with BFA, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this again. I would instead, let's be honest, these days you don't need to play World of Warcraft to follow the story. You can just sort of watch the cinematics that Blizzard puts out and you'll know most of the story. So I'll be back at 9.2 to play the campaign, right? Just like that I have to play. And then I'm just going to quit again probably. Although this time I might stick around for the Cypher. Because that's the only thing that I'm actually excited for in 9.2 is the Cypher of the first ones. Hey,
I mean, yeah, like you said, they started a system pretty much in Legion with your god Artifact, was it called back then?
Yeah.
The system of farm, but I didn't mind the Artifact. I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't that much of a problem, but that evolved into the whole necklace situation in Battle for Azeroth, and now with the Covenants in Shadowlands, they just keep pushing forward, and it's not for the enjoyment of the game. It's purely based on keeping people online as long as you can. And they don't have to do that, honestly. If they just make a fun game to play, people will play it. If they would let me play my alts, I would have so much more to do. But I can't, because they put me through these grinds and these systems that I'm just not interested in. The content is barely fun enough to do it on one character, let alone on multiple ones.
I mean, the artifact was fun, and you could say if you maybe identify something else. I believe the artifact was fun for two reasons. Number one, the weapons were actually fucking cool. The stuff that you unlocked from it, you were excited when you got a new golden trait. And even some of the minor traits were really exciting stuff to unlock, especially as an Affliction Warlock. And then you basically could level your artifact weapon doing whatever the fuck you like doing. Right? So I, for example, never spammed dungeons. I didn't spam Mythic Plus to level my artifact weapon. I raided. That was it. I would do the raids, I would do world quests, because world quests are sort of cathartic. You know, you just sort of, especially the Legion ones, where eventually you could just pull everything, one-shot it, and you're done with the world quest. So I would do world quests, I would do my raiding, and I would usually be like maybe one level behind the people who grind out Mythic Plus in my guild. Then in BFA, Blizzard sort of came up with this, like you said, to improve engagement. They decided, I don't know if you remember, right at the beginning, you could only really level your neck through island expeditions. Everything else gave so little Azerite that it wasn't even worth doing. So if you didn't like island expeditions, you were shit out of luck. You're gonna have to fucking run this in order to level this neck. And then the neck's boring. No one cares about the neck because the traits are on the armor, so it feels disconnected. And now you have Torghast, which could have been such a cool system, but was shat on again. And Mage Tower. Did you hear about the stuff with Mage Tower and the nerfing of Mage Tower?
Yeah, but then again, I haven't played the Mage Tower, so I don't know how valid the feedback is, because I've also seen reports from people like, this is not how it was back in Legion. Like, I remember that the Mage Tower was spicy, but apparently it's a bit overtuned.
I think it would feel overtuned, considering we no longer have those legendaries. Right? And I remember as an Affliction Warlock trying to do the Affliction Warlock one without the slow ring was a bitch. It was one of the hardest things ever because you basically have no time. You have to run the whole fucking time, try to stun, try to get out of it, fear them away. So it was a nightmare to run, absolutely. But I would say I think I can't really make a judgment because I also haven't played it at all. But I do think they're too quick on the nerf.
It depends. Like I said, I haven't tested it. So if it's purely based on it feels too strong, please make it easier so everybody can do it, then yeah, that would be shitty. But if it's truly overtuned, which, you know, seeing how the development has been in the past, I could definitely see a thing.
Yeah.
Then justified nerfs, right?
Yeah, I still wonder because Preach actually made a very good video on this. I was watching him because he followed the forums and people on the forums were bitching, can't do it, it's too fucking hard. And then you'd see like 4 or 5 hours later, the guy goes, just did it, right? So obviously it's non-random, right? So it could be that this guy just happened to do it, but not all classes can do it. But at the end of the day, it did seem like a lot of people just thought it was too hard because they haven't realized this was hard. It was meant to be a challenge, and you sort of have to learn the fight step by step.
Yeah, well, let's be fair. At the end of Legion, it became proper face roll. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
It was hard when it launched, but then you overgeared it, and it became a lot easier.
Yeah, which is sadly the thing that you're gonna love getting to level 50, by the way, in ARR. Or in Final Fantasy, because there's a thing that's called minimum item level no echo in Final Fantasy, which allows you to experience all the raids and dungeons and stuff almost as if it was current, because it reduces your item level right down to the minimum item level required to do it. And no echo means you don't level up, you don't scale up. So determination stacks that you get in World of Warcraft, that isn't active. Then you get those fights, you experience them as if you're doing them for the first time ever. Which I've always said, this is what Blizzard should do with time walking. Time walking should be rebalanced. But anyways, we're straying a bit from the lore discussion.
We were talking about should they kill off Sylvanas or what should they do with Sylvanas at this point. I think that was a half an hour ago.
Yeah.
To go back to that one, like what would I see them do with Sylvanas? Like her voice file, one of her clickable voice files is Navanos, my love, wherever you are, I'm gonna find you. So in the realm of speculation, it appears that she will stick around at the very least.
Yeah.
And potentially become the new jailer of the Maw, perhaps. That could be a thing where she just goes around wandering looking for Navanos. Like I said, I don't think killing her off at this point would give any satisfaction. At the same time, putting her on ice and bringing her back later, I don't know. I once speculated about the idea of bringing her back to life and truly make her feel all the things that she has done. Truly feel, not the undead kind of feel, but like truly feel.
Yeah.
That seems to be what's happening now with her soul restored, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. As I said, dealing with the Sylvanas storyline is incredibly difficult. You got people that hate her, people that absolutely adore her, and everything in between. There's no way they're gonna get this right. No way.
No. They've basically made up the entire audience against Sylvanas, or at least against their story about Sylvanas. Right? So the loyalists hate the story because it's going in the wrong direction. The haters hate the story because it's going in the wrong direction. Everyone hates the story because it's not going in the right direction. And even if they kill her, there's always the argument to be made that she will immediately just wake up in the Shadowlands, right? Because technically she is Forsaken. When the Forsaken die, they still go to the Shadowlands. At least based on my reading of the lore. So you'll kill her and she'll immediately wake up and go, the fuck are you doing? So you'll have to kill her again. To make sure she's permanently dead, I suppose. So I could definitely see...
Send her off to Super Shadowlands. Because didn't you know there's like a Shadowlands beyond the Shadowlands? That was actually from the first ones.
Don't even fucking tease, dude. I literally said, when they said, when you die in the Shadowlands, you are dead. I said, yeah, until they need to have you not dead. Then you're no longer dead. But
like honestly, when they were talking about the Shadowlands and like the future of where the game could go, I was pondering, like, we now know how the afterlife in Warcraft works. We have a rule book as to what do you need to live in order to how you're gonna die. Yeah. And I kind of figured that they were going to shatter all of that. But now that we know that Pelago is going to become a new Arbiter and potentially Sylvanas in the Maw, it seems like we're just going to return to the status quo. Yeah. With maybe a bit fair judgment. And I'm like, what was the point of the Shadowlands?
I still don't... I can't answer that for you, because I still don't quite... So I knew I'm going to have trouble with this expansion when it was announced. And I learned for the first time about these afterlives. Because I immediately looked at all the afterlives and I was like, I don't like either of these. The Kyrian mind control you, so you don't even get a fucking say. The Ardenweald people are hippies that's just hugging trees. That's just weird to me.
No, best zone. Just chill, become a squirrel and hang out in a tree for the rest of your eternity. It's fantastic. At least they don't put you to work, you know?
True, you get to play and I guess you get to prank people, so that's kind of cool if you're one of the fairies.
Yeah, hug a tree every now and then. It's great.
I mean, it's definitely the most beautiful zone by far. I would actually go so far as to say it might be one of the most beautiful zones Blizzard have ever made, just from aesthetic perspective. Then
have you looked at it with the Dark Moon Fair potion?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you need you need to get yourself in on that. It's gorgeous.
Oh, I can imagine having it even darker would just be fucking amazing. Maldraxxus was sort of the only one that appealed to me. Like, I could look at it and say, kind of, they allow you to at least be who you are. You're not being mind controlled. You can still kill people if you fucking feel like it. Their judging system never made sense to me, because there's a person inside Maldraxxus that basically slaughtered thousands of her own family members. And And somehow the Arbiter went, nope, you don't need to be in the Maw. You can go to Maldraxxus.
The dialogue between Kilfas and Vash was beautiful. He was like, why weren't you sent to Revendreth? And she was like, well, I never lost, did I? Like, what? Is that how it works? If you lose, you get to go?
Yeah, I mean, nothing makes sense. Don't even, like the Pelagos thing. I want to ask you, how do you feel about Pelagos making it to Arbiter status?
I don't mind it. Like, I find Pelagos, their character, I find it somewhat fitting. It's somebody that overcomes their trials. They're not perfect, but again, it's something that sells short. It needed another patch to build that up, because right now in 9.2, all of a sudden Pelagos shows up, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go with you to Zera Mortis now. I'm like, why? I don't fucking know you. I'm Revendreth. Yo, where's Renafal at? Yo, Renafal!
Yeah.
Oh, you're coming with me. It's like, okay. And the Primus is like, oh, Pelagos, you're so heroic, you get to come with. And I'm like, literally anyone else. Please, anyone that doesn't fail their trials constantly. Anyone else? No? Okay, well. And you know, the whole reason why they forced Pelagos in there is because they're going to turn them into the Arbiter. You know that because of data mining.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, you're going to be super confused. Like, why the hell is Pelagos here?
Yeah, they're literally taking one of the most unremarkable characters in the Shadowlands and making them the Arbiter. But for me, it's even the bigger problem I have with it. People kept saying Sylvanas is going to become the new Arbiter. And I said, I don't see how that can happen, because these are god-level creatures. So why would a mortal ever qualify as being a god?
At the same time, they made the robot an Arbiter, so why the heck not?
Well, of course, this was before we learned about 9.2, and that all of them are basically just fucking robots, right? They're just designed in Zereth Mortis.
When did we learn that the Arbiter was actually... Well, we learned at the end of 9.1 that the Arbiter was artificially created.
Yeah, they took... But there again, the Arbiter was created using the essence of Zuval. So still they had to use the essence of a god.
Oh, that's another thing. Oh my god, the fucking sigils. Zoval has spent millennia trying to get his hands on his sigils, and we go around reforging their purpose, and we're getting new ones. But then the worst one comes around, they're like, 9.2, fuck, we still need Zoval's sigil, what are we gonna do? And like, these three little attendants show up, and they're like, we got this, and there's a new sigil, and it's like, what? This is super easy.
But then, I was watching that, and I thought to myself, Zuval, you have a blacksmith right there, just make you some sigils, like,
right?
They're not hard to remember. You could just draw them on a piece of paper. He smack, and you've got your sigils. Go fucking control the world now. No, he needs the original ones. But now that there's no original ones, they can just remake them. It's like, oh my god, what are we fucking doing? Where is the story going?
Right?
I forgot about the sigil. I think I blocked it out. This is the problem with Shadowlands, right? Everything has an answer depending on what they need. Like, if they need something, they can quickly come up with it. And it doesn't really matter whether the player base can follow along or is completely lost with the story. And I think the best example I have of this is the fourth wall has come down. And Blizzard doesn't seem to care about putting it back up in any way, shape, or form.
What do you mean?
The fourth wall, as you have in theater, right? Where
but what do you mean with the four walls come down?
You've realized that this is a story written by people. This is not a world. This is not a breathing world. Someone is writing this story, and they can basically write whatever the fuck they want.
Dude, the whole the whole reason why the Waygate responded to us is so weird. It's like, you've been prophesized before. And okay, fair enough. The first ones could foresee that we were needed and we needed the Waygates. But then they could also foresee what happened to Zoval, right? Like, was this just all part of their plan? Is that what we're going to find out? That the first ones were like, haha, good job, hero. This is exactly as we intended. It's like, what? Yeah.
Why did you do it then in the first place?
Then Sylvanas is going to be proven right. Like, she is like, there is no choice. Everything is predetermined. Everything we've seen so far, if the gateways are in the right spots, that means it's been predetermined.
Yeah.
Let's tear this fucker down.
I mean, okay, so let's just recap. One of the first place we go to, right, is the Maw. There's a Waygate there, which suggests that was once a realm of some such, because all of the realms have these way gates, right? We use them to get born again or some shit.
Unless the first ones made it specifically because they knew they were going to need a Maw for Zovaal. Like, if they could predict it all.
If they could predict it all. But we don't know, because the very first realm we set foot on, we still have no fucking clue what it's about. Like, did it have a history? Doesn't it have a history? Was it always meant to be the place where banished souls go? There's clearly been a war there, because if you look at the Maw, it's ripped to pieces. Have you ever, like, walked to the edge of the Maw and just looked down?
Yeah.
There's like paths just broken and sort of hanging down below, right? So clearly this was like a massive realm once, but it got ripped to pieces by something. Something big might have happened. In the beginning of the expansion, I theorized that it was a Void Lord. The Void Lords arrived and they basically ripped this planet apart. They just sucked all of the life out of it. But how do we not even know what the first realm was all about? Like, how do we not have any story on the first realm?
As you said, like, we know that Zovaal struck out at his fellow Eternal Ones, and that's why they imprisoned him. But did they create the Maw to imprison him? Which would imply that they created a realm of eternal torment for all the souls. As well as, oh my fucking god, the Kyrian storyline. Where it's like a huge problem that Zovaal is getting these souls, and the Arbiter is broken. And all they had to do was stop delivering the souls. Poor Ben.
Oh my god.
Poor Ben is just still tortured in the Maw because we didn't stop delivering souls. And you could argue, like, yeah, if they stop, then everything comes crumbling down. But it would be really nice to have that in-game. And it's just not there. They're like, yeah, you know, this happens. And then the argument was like, well, they don't know. But then we reached the end of 9.1, I think it was. And you hear from one of those attendants like, oh yeah, we knew that the Arbiter was broken, but we kept our mouth shut because things had to keep on going. It's like, no, it didn't.
Yep.
What?
I mean, also the way they bring the souls, they release them into the soul stream, then it goes to the Arbiter, then they pick them up and they take them to their realms. Why release them into the soul stream? You could still pick them up and just take them to one of the fucking realms if you really wanted this problem to fucking end. But no, we just have to keep feeding souls. Let's make the big bad enemy that we're all afraid of even stronger by giving him more souls.
Everybody's so worried about the Jailor, and all you had to do was stop feeding him power. Sylvanas burned a whole tree, which apparently had so many souls that it made a difference, even though all the souls of all the realms go in there. So you'd imagine that a little Teldrassil is like a little tiny droplet, but whatever. Stop dropping souls into the Maw, you dumb cunts.
None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense.
From the get-go.
Just, there's so many holes, which is why I said earlier in chat, stop asking questions. You said it as well here. Don't ask questions. This is a fucking house of cards. When you start poking holes, it all comes crumbling down. Because you can actually see where Chris Metzen's writing stopped, because he's a big D&D guy. Which usually
when do you think it stopped? What time period do you give to it?
I actually think his direction stopped middle of Legion, just before the end of Legion. Just based on story. So I'm not really, like, I don't have any evidence of this or anything. I just, based on how the story is being told, the reason I say this is Argus and the handling of Argus. Because if we want to go back to the first time Blizzard started handling lore shit, I would go back to Argus. You bring this big bad new fucking Titan, right? We get an entire audio drama about this Titan. We go to his world. He's the big bad guy. He's killed in the same patch. And I say, what? Why did you introduce him then? Like, was he supposed to matter?
And the fuck up that they did, because in Legion they made the suggestion that Argus was the reason why the demons kept respawning, because they had this whole bit about take care of Argus, you take care of the Legion. Yeah. But that goes completely against how demons were established and the whole storyline of Sargaras, because they already respawned before he enslaved Argus.
Yeah, which left myself and others to go, well, maybe he just sped up the process, because now we have to cover for Blizzard, right?
Exactly.
But I would say that might be the moment that Chris Metzen stopped writing the story. And the reason I think that is, do you play D&D at all?
Dabble, but not heavily, no.
So I've had the opportunity to play D&D and also do a DM session, a Dungeon Master session. And when you're doing the Dungeon Master session, now I'm not by any means an expert on this. I've only done Dungeon Mastering once, but I remember when I built the world, you have to come up with so much little things that you need to have ready. And then on the fly, you have to think as well, because the players ask you a question and you're like, fuck. All right, come up with a reason for why this thing is happening, because the player can do whatever they want. You can tell that Chris Metzen used to be that, because it used to be in World of Warcraft. Now, granted, there also seems to be a change in how World of Warcraft handles the lore. It went from being a game where the lore was sort of secondary, like the lore only really explained the bosses that we fought, to the lore being kind of important. Right? And almost becoming a primary thing, but not really treated as if it's a primary thing. But at least with the old game, like think back to Wrath, Cataclysm, TBC, Vanilla. If there was something that you needed to know, there was a way to know it. It was explained somewhere. Right?
Well, I mean, if you mention Cataclysm, Cataclysm was a shit show.
Was it for
like
lore?
Cataclysm? Yeah, the Death of Cairn was in a book. Magni's transformation into a crystal was in a book.
Yeah. I mean,
so the whole foundation of the changes of the world to the Cataclysm, they hid away in a book.
Yeah. But I mean,
so
that I would literally say is the problem with the transmedia bullshit that Blizzard keeps pushing. Right? For some reason, Blizzard is in this world where they want to maximize profits. So they write books to advertise the game, and then the game advertises the books, and in the end, you never get the fucking story, right? Because you just keep going from, I have to play the game for the next part, and then I have to play the book for the next part. So I'm with you there. I've always been against this whole, we need to buy books in order to get the story. But at least back in the day, you got those explanations, right? The book explained to you that Magni was crystallized. Whereas nowadays, to use the Magni example, Magni would just rock up one day and be like, hey, I'm Diamond now. And everyone would be like, since when? Ah, just happened,
yeah, okay.
You know?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, with your time scheme when it comes to Metzen, it does feel that way, to be honest, somewhere around the Legion period. Like, you can see the definite cracks with Battle for Azeroth, of course.
Yeah.
I truly think that they regret the burning of Teldrassil, yet at the same time, they keep poking at it, so I'm like, what the heck are you doing there? Well, you could just see that the quality, and that's the sad part about Shadowlands as well, because I honestly started wondering, like, has the story always been this shit? Which is why I've been diving more into older characters. I'm like, nah, you could definitely see a transition in the quality when you get to these expansions.
Yeah. I watched your video about, I think it was Sylvanas, not long ago. You did a whole story about Sylvanas, and I remember thinking to myself, this lore was amazing. Like, the fact that you could make a video of, half an hour on a character and explain exactly the story, the origin of this character.
The path of progression, yeah.
And then I ask you, make a video of similar quality about Suval, right? And you'd be like, I could make a video and make it really cool, but not necessarily of similar quality.
Like I've done Soval, but the problem with Soval is that we're told a lot of things about Soval, but we're not shown a lot of things about Soval. And when you're introducing a new character, not even to mention a character that has apparently done so very much, you need to have the development time, especially when it goes so against the character that they show, because they. In this latest Sylvanas cutscene as well, you have Uther that's like Soval is like a manipulator or something like that. He uses that word as a description. And I'm like, when? To which comments were like, yeah, but Soval has done the plague and he's manipulated people to his side. And I'm like, that's new though. In the past, that was not Soval. And you can force him in there as much as you like with all the inconsistencies. Take that bit away. Like, what do we know about Soval? Devils, we don't know what he did in order to get Devils to his side.
No.
The whole War of the Eternal Ones. The Nephrius, we don't know what he did to get the Nephrius to his side. All we see of Soval is this walking Frostmourne running around, I'm gonna dominate everybody, and you're gonna dominate everybody. And then we're supposed to be shocked and surprised that he's gonna dominate everybody?
Still don't, by the way. we still don't know what Denathrius would have gained out of backing Zuval.
Yeah, and why he at one point decided to imprison Zoval and then change his mind.
Exactly. Like, again, just apparently that storyline is forgotten. Apparently that storyline no longer matters. It's like the storyline for the Drust also seems to have been just introduced.
That was just random.
Fucking left. Yeah. It's like, oh my god, we're gonna learn about the Drust. Oh no, you're not gonna learn about the Drust. Go fuck yourself. They're just here because we ran out of models to put in Ardenweald. And it's like, oh, okay, never mind. I guess later. But the Devos one was actually one of my, because that character had me literally excited.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was very excited for the Davos character because this is a Kyrian that went through all the mind control that the mind control couldn't hold, right? The cognitive dissonance was so great that they eventually fell and went completely dark side. And then that storyline is also seemingly just sort of tagged on. They just, we'll just fucking finish this quickly. Thank you. Done with it.
It's mentioned in chat that I thought it was clear about Devils from the animated short today with Ufer, I understood. I mean, we see Devils going closer to the Maw and dropping Arceus Soul in there. Then fast forward and we find out that Devils is an ally to the Jailer. Did Devils talk to the Jailer in that moment? Did she tell Ufer like, hey, go get some coffee, I got some dealings to do? What exactly did she discuss with the Jailer? She mentions in the dungeon that the Jailer told her this history about the Eternal Ones and this great injustice that they inflicted upon him. What injustice? What did he tell her? How was he possibly able to convince her to step away from the path that the Kyrian were on for millennia ago? What the fuck did she mean? Then you can relate it to Sylvanas, who's like, this whole system is unfair. What system? What are you smoking? Why is the Shadowlands unfair? Perhaps it's not unfair. Perhaps it is fair. Yeah. For all we know, the Jailer could be right. And we're fighting against this guy on the premise of, well, they're telling us that he's the bad guy. Maybe he was the good guy before they gave him domination magic. Because the only reason why he now dominates people is because the Primus inscribed his body with domination magic. Maybe his original plans were all great and fantastic. We don't know, and that's the problem. I want to know these things. You can tell me all you want, like, oh yeah, by the time that she reached the Maw with Arceus Soul, that's when he talked and he gave her coffee and biscuits and she was like, oh, this is actually a nice guy. Your interpretation could be 100% correct. It's assumptions, and I want a story because my assumptions are like, what the fuck?
So I will say, and this is not aimed at anyone in specific in chat or anywhere else. I first want to say Tony may have the most correct reason for why Denathrius joined, and that is that Zuval offered him a lifetime subscription to World of Warcraft books, and he was like, okay.
That's fair. That's a hard deal to pass up on.
Yeah, that's a big money saver, right? Because you'd go bankrupt if you bought them all. But no, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest problems I have with the player base, and this is not to sort of talk down to the player base in any way, shape, or form. It's more to say, hey, people need to raise their standards. A story, right, is meant to be told. You cannot say, well, you know, I kind of made sense of it when I include 150 different speculation theories into it. It kind of makes sense. Then it doesn't make sense. And I think, Nobbel, you speaking on this actually makes the most sense because you're not into the speculation game. I
like to dabble and speculate from time to time, but there's a time and place where you can add speculation. I loved the period of time in which the Titans and the Old Gods were these mysterious beings that we knew fuck all about. We had a couple of books and scraplets, but it wasn't the core story that was being told. Yeah. I am now having to face with the Jailer and the first ones. I like the first ones. I like that they're building up these new beings that are out there. It's a bit shit that they're rewriting everything they've done before.
Yeah.
But it does remind me of the days where it was a mystery and it was, ooh, what's going on here? What I don't like is that I'm trying to fight against a guy that I half understand with some weird ass vague descriptions of I'm gonna set us all free, which apparently means I'm gonna set us all free from our WoW subscriptions, but that's neither here nor there. You know, there's a time and place where you keep things vague. Like the Whispers of Ilgynoth were great, but you can't build a story out of Whispers of Ilgynoth. And it
No.
comes across for me as a writing department that's afraid to tell their story because, as you said, it's a house of cards. And by the time that they do explain it, we can go like, well, this makes fuck all sense. Same with
Yeah.
Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis now shows up in 9.2 as a full-blown ally of the Jailer,
Yeah.
and people rightfully point out, what about his storyline of the Lich King, where he actively went against the Lich King? Are you telling us that was all just to deceive us and motivate us to take down Arthas? Like, what is going on there?
What I meant to say when I said you don't really speculate is in your videos, in your content, you don't really ever include speculation. You do hard historical facts.
Yeah,
So-
unless there's in the title. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking about you, like what everyone knows you for mostly is you're the historian of World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah.
So when Nobbel tells you, I need more story here, what he's literally saying is, I can't make a video out of this character really because I would have to speculate 100% of what this character actually is because the story is not provided for the character. And your example of the Titans were actually so perfect. The Titans were very unknown, but they were also not main characters. They weren't main enemies or even really main protagonists or antagonists of the story. They were just sort of there and we knew they were there. So it's okay that you don't know much about them. But like you said, as soon as you put someone directly in my path, this is now a direct character that I'm going to deal with. You can't have that character have the same amount of knowledge or information as the background characters.
Yep.
Because I need to know why I want to kill this guy. Because I still can't figure that out. People tell me Zuval is evil, and I'm like, why? Maybe he's right. You know? Maybe this is a fucked up universe and things should change. I don't know.
Honestly, I thought that was going to be their direction, but it doesn't seem to be anymore. Honestly, I thought that they were going to be right, and we're going to be like, oh, Sylvanas, what have we done? We're so sorry. You're right. Burning Teldrassil was the only path forward. I thought that was the direction. But apparently not.
I made videos saying Sylvanas is right. You know?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Because I genuinely thought we were going to reach a point in this expansion where we're going to realize, whoa, these Eternal Ones aren't nice. This world isn't nice. And they're correct. I still held out hope for a Maw Covenant. Of course, that was before I played in the Maw, and I realized I would fucking kill myself if I played here every day. But, you know, still, I was holding out hope. And even now, at the end of the expansion, I'm still sitting here thinking, but is it really, like, is he really bad? Because I know he is, because they tell me he is, but that's not enough, right? Because at that point, you're just telling me. You're not showing me. Which is, I think, if I were to drill down on the exact problem for Shadowlands, it's that. In World of Warcraft, ever since Legion, like the middle half of Legion onwards, it's become a case of, we'll tell you what you need to know, we're not going to show you. Like, we're not actually going to fill in the details for you. We'll just show you, there's a bad guy, go kill it. There's another bad guy, go kill it. And you don't really need to understand it. So, for example, what they did to my boy N'Zoth was just unforgivable.
Oh boy, yeah.
I'm going to bring
Old gods
back...
in general, to be honest.
Oh yeah, the old gods in general have just been like completely disrespected, but here we have the one old god that have bided his time, refused to break out, right? We're told that he was the weakest of all of the old gods, but also almost the strongest, because he almost never lost a battle, which leads you to believe he must also be very, very strategic. He's going to bring back the Black Empire, and instead he can barely manage to turn 2 zones into the Black Empire. And it's like, well, okay. Well,
Like, his minion was able to do more death and destruction than N'Zoth did. And the moment that he broke out of prison was already a fart in the wind. And it was such an epic moment for the first time in the history of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Since they were imprisoned. There's an old god on the loose. What the fuck? What kind of implications is this gonna have? How mad is the world gonna be? And it was like nothing. And now he's gone. And oh, by the way, the other old gods that you thought that might still be there, because apparently we actually killed those. They're gone as well. Yay!
Yeah, we all argued always that we just pushed them back into their prisons, because
That was the idea behind it.
yeah. And now we learn, no, you did actually kill them. Oh, these strong fucking creatures, that's gods, by the way, we can kill them. they weren't that, I don't know, the Titans must not be very strong, to be quite honest. Because we did it.
Wasn't that hard, by the way? You know, I did it as a level 60 in Classic. You know, wasn't that hard, Titans? What the fuck?
Yeah, they couldn't do it. It was too hard for them. But here's I'll give you a bit of speculation. You may have heard this already. But what if everything that we're seeing right now is actually a dream?
Yeah, I mean, that's the oldest cop-out, right? Like, that's Super Mario Land 2. Like, yeah, it could all be a dream. We could all be stuck inside a cocoon, slowly being devoured right now.
In my opinion, yes, cop-out, yes, horrible cop-out. But kind of the only way I see them salvaging the Shadowlands story.
Yeah, but I've said the same at the ending of Battle for Azeroth, when people were like, what if Nisov kept us in this dream world, right? And I'm like, no, they shit the bed. They need to lie in it. They made this world. Let them fix it rather than cop out like that. Mm-hmm. And in the case of the Shadowlands, like I said, it doesn't seem to be the direction with Pelagos becoming the new Arbiter and whatnot, but they could have had the Jailor destroy it all and rewrite the entire Warcraft universe. That would be cool. Like, everything is different. I would be down for it. Clean slate. Make whatever the hell you want. Go for it.
Before the data mining started, I said, all right, guys, listen to this. He's going to Zereth Mortis and we're going to fail. He's going to fucking destroy everything. And then the data mining started and I was like, oh, never mind. We're doing this again. We're going to beat this Titan++. I don't know how we're going to beat him. For some reason,
it's going to use Azeroth as a battery.
But
because Mechty needs to yell the wounds.
Here's the funniest thing about the whole Azeroth inclusion. If it hits Azeroth, she takes like 20% fucking HP loss. But it hits the player for 60.
Yeah.
How much HP does Azeroth have?
I mean, she just has better armor. Like, I'm super curious to see if we'll actually see like a health bar above the planet. Like, you know the shot from Argus from above where you can see all of Azeroth? I just want a health bar above that. Or if she's finally gonna wake up, you know.
It would be cool if she wakes up. They did promise that the sword is going to be used. So maybe she wakes up and she grabs Sargeras' sword. Because at this point, 2 promises have not been kept. The cannon has never been fired. And we were told that the cannon was going to be fired.
Why are people so hell-bent on that fucking cannon?
It needs to be used. It's but just why? There. Why is it there?
What does it mean?
Well, I'll aim it at Stormwind and we'll see what happens. We'll just go with that and let's see. Let the cards fall as they may, right? But okay, so somehow he's going to fucking slaughter Azeroth for some reason. And then we're going to kill him. And it's just like, this dude... that all of the Eternal Ones combined could not defeat him. They basically had to lock him up in the Maw.
Maybe they could have defeated him. Maybe they were like, you just need to time out. Because in that defense, the Primus does say, I hoped that your time and time out would have changed your mind.
Okay, so you're basically saying very similar to the Titans. They don't want to kill each other. So instead, like with Sargeras as well, they refuse to kill him. They pull him back and... basically, brother, your crusade is over, and apparently that's it. So
that's the idea I got behind it, because again, during the Primus conversation, he does make mention in that regard. Like, it's still very cruel to like imprison someone like that. Yep. But hello, Illidan, you know, that was also very cruel. And Malfurion had a similar mind. Like, I was hoping that eternal darkness and not being able to kill yourself would actually change you. Ha, didn't. Weird.
Yeah, but then of course we learned that Illidan was always correct and everyone else was wrong. And I still don't understand the letters that we delivered because they don't seem to like change anything.
The letters?
Do you know? Oh, Illidan gave us letters to deliver to Malfurion, Tyrande, and
wasn't that just in response to people saying like, how could you do an Illidan expansion without having them actually talk to one another?
Yeah, but if you're gonna put it in, it has to mean something. I hate this. I guess the point I'm making is I hate this fan service stuff where things are introduced seemingly just to make the fans shut the fuck up. And it's like, well,
yeah.
make it make sense, make it mean something. At least have Malfurion admit that he was a fucking Paladin, right?
Oh, no. It was a perfect opportunity for Tyrande to go like, thrice words. You might have sacrificed all you've been for 10,000 years, but it doesn't mean I like you, Illidan. It's like, okay, well, cool, that's the final farewell. Like, what the fuck? The guy gave everything to stop the Legion.
Yeah.
What the hell? What did you guys do? Stuck in a nightmare? Whoops.
Yeah, she literally chose the brother that has narcolepsy over the guy that wanted to save the fucking world, you know? And it's like...
His final moments in death were on Tyrande. And he's like, Tyrande, my love. And she is like, thrice words. Like, what the fuck? Okay.
But I mean, we could probably, like... And what bothers me, and maybe it's just because I wasn't that focused back then, because I grew up learning about most of the WoW lore from you. Before I even started making content. So I obviously wasn't that involved from day one I always loved the lore. I've always been someone who plays for the lore. I played since Warcraft 2. And the story have always been very good to me, but I don't seem to find as many holes in the original stories. I mean, there's always going to be holes. So there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be something that hasn't truly been explained the way that you would like it to be explained. But just not that many. Whereas everything now just feels like I don't even know how to speculate. Because I always have viewers going, oh my god, dude, more speculation videos, please. And I'm like, what do you want me to speculate on? I don't know. I'm also trying to figure this shit out. I can't speculate. Yeah. I have no idea. Someone asked me yesterday, so what's happening after Shadowlands? I don't even know what's happening in Shadowlands. Like, I
don't even know what's going on right now.
Yeah. Like, I first have to figure out what the fuck I'm doing here. Then I can maybe tell you what's coming next. It's just messy. And when the Danuser said in that fucking announcement, I'm kind of a lore guy myself. I was like, really?
I mean, yeah, but it just, like he said, I love for people to pick up the pieces, speculate about it. He really loves the Whispers of Ilgynoth. It's clear as day, and he just decided, fuck it, I'll make an entire story like the Whispers of Ilgynoth.
But what made the Whispers of Ilgynoth so amazing is that it was secondary. It was... There was a massive world around the Whispers, and the Whispers sort of gave us insight into things that may happen. Like, we didn't know, right? Yeah. Even now, most of those Whispers are 50-50. You maybe they happen, maybe they don't. We still have the Whisper. The Golden One claims the Golden One claims the empty throne, the vacant throne. The Crown of Light brings only darkness, which
and the Boy King will offer you 3 lies.
Exactly, which 3 lies when? Now here's the thing: the Crown of Wills seems to be very gold, right? The Crown of Light will bring only darkness. What if Anduin dons the helm, the Crown of Wills, claims the vacant throne, and now comes the 3 lies? You see, that's brilliant.
Maybe.
Because the Whispers wasn't really the main focus of the story. They were thrown in for people like us to nerd out on. To go, oh my god, what could it mean? What could it mean? Now, everything is that.
Yeah.
Every single part of the story is a whisper. And you're going, well, 50-50.
I mean, everything is, of course, a very broad statement for those listening. But yeah, a lot of it, like core parts of it that should have been explained by now, are still kept in the dark. And that's not to say that everything about the Shadowlands was terrible, because I quite enjoyed the leveling experience. I quite enjoyed the stories of, like you said, Bastion with the Kyrian. I was like, oh, where's this going to go? And then Devils was killed off right away. It's like, well, fuck, this is not going anywhere.
Yep.
I quite liked the Nephews build-up, of course. Ardenweald, I was invested in, like, finding out this sis relationship. Meldraxxus was probably my least favorite, funny enough. But, you know, still the most recognizable character, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all doom and gloom in the Shadowlands, but when it comes to major story arcs like Tyrande, like Sylvanas, like Soval, like the first ones now being introduced, there's a lot more that they needed to do with that. And I really wonder how far we can draw the line of, you know, lockdown has influenced their productivity Fair enough. The work company atmosphere has affected their quality. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But then you also hear the presentation, like, we plan to do this in 3 arcs. And I'm like, oh, so this was planned out, apparently. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Well, some people are saying this might just be a response to Endwalker. Because in Endwalker, the whole story that started in ARR comes to an end. And then there's going to be a new thing.
That presentation as well, people, where he was like, yeah, we're weaving together things from Warcraft 3 and we're bringing it all together now. And some saw that as, oh yeah, they always planned this story out since Warcraft 3, but I personally didn't see that. But at the same time, it's bullshit to say that you came up with the Jailor, as early as Battle for Azeroth, because in Legion you still had a different direction for Sylvanas in mind, so don't pretend like you're bringing stuff together. You did Kel'Thuzad dirty, man. You did him real dirty by saying, I was always in league with the Jailor, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that was not Kel'Thuzad. How cool would it have been to actually deal with the human side of Kel'Thuzad, who at the throne of the Lich King, doubted, wanted out, and was unable to escape at that point? Oh no, fuck it, he's just a minion number 10 that we take down because of the Jailor and his ultimate plans.
If they say that they've known about the Jailor since the beginning, they have a lot of explanation to do about previous writing. Because
they did not. Fuck off, they didn't. The Jailor is new.
Yeah.
And you can credit as much as you want. You can hang up your little coat hangers or storylines like this was all him. That doesn't mean it was all him.
No, it can't be all him. Because here's one thing: if the Jailor was planned, and if I was a writer for World of Warcraft, I would have said, "Hey, let's throw his name in." We say nothing else. Just one word, Zuval. Let Arthas or Calthazar or someone say it. Yeah, because we have this plan, right? He is eventually going to feature. But no, that guaranteed, because no one ever referenced it. No one ever referenced it. It wasn't until Bolvar's short story that we learned that he's fighting some dark force whilst donning the helm.
Well, to be fair, there was always the debate about the entity of the Lich King, because you had like Ner'zhul in there, you had Arthas in there, like, what exactly was the Lich King at that point? So the idea of there was a Lich King before there was a Lich King, fair enough. But it wasn't what you're going with now.
No. If anything, my argument to the Lich King thing was almost always that some Lich was placed inside the Helm of Domination for some kind of punishment. Like Sargeras did how many fucking times with these followers, right? You take the staff, thank you very much, Buddha, really appreciate that, bro. What's the staff, Uthalish, right? So something similar to that. I always thought Lich King makes sense that there's a Lich inside the Helm of Domination, and this Lich basically controls the Lich King, right? It just needs a body, so to speak. But also the way they told the story with Ner'zhul, it was Ner'zhul who wanted Arthas because he wanted a body to get out. Because he couldn't leave. But now we're learning, no, actually, that was all Zuval. It's like, okay, fine, I guess, if that was all Zuval. But we have, so there was always a plan for something bigger than the Lich King. I'll grant them that. But I will not grant them Zuval. Because that's not the idea that they set up. They never spoke about this. That was it doesn't seem like that was ever the idea.
No. And they changed origin stories. Like, these were stories that already had their origins. Same with the Dreadlords that came from the Twisted Nether. Now we learn that they actually come from the Shadowlands. You can change those things, fair enough. It's your story. You can do with whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah.
But don't pretend like that was always the case.
No. I think they could have done it. I think if it wasn't for the fact that they pretended, and this might actually be the biggest reason it sucks so much, is because they're pretending it was always the case. They just want the player base to accept this was always the truth. Because if they weren't pretending, they may have done a better job at trying to explain it. Right? Explain to us how Zuval slots into all of these little things. And maybe when you can't explain it, these were moments where he lost control. Because that's believable, right? He's not close, he's in the Maw, so maybe he loses control and then this character goes on and does something weird. Instead,
But it would be
no.
nice to actually see story like that in game, because again, we can unleash our own interpretations upon the story as much as we want.
Yeah.
But where does it end, right? I could say the flying spaghetti monster's done everything else, and I would be just as right as you would.
Exactly. Now, I don't know how much you know about this. Have you ever
The flying spaghetti monster? I'm a firm believer of the flying spaghetti monster. Yeah.
I'm right on the opposite side of things. I actually think the Earth is hollow and there's a god level creature living inside of it.
Fair.
You know, I
Impale it with a sword.
exactly. It explains everything. But do you know sort of Danuser's history?
Nah, I no.
From what I can gather, Danuser gave a speech, a presentation before he even worked for Blizzard about Transmedia, right? So you know what Transmedia is?
No.
Okay, so Transmedia is almost the opposite of multimedia. Transmedia is where what World of Warcraft do. The game tells a story, then you have books that tell a different story, then you have maybe series that tell a different story, and you have audio books that tell a different story. So basically you optimize your profits by telling the story in as many media sources as possible.
Transformative media, as in not just in the game, but also books and cutscenes and movies and all that stuff. Yeah.
Transformative media. Sorry, yeah. Transformative media is probably an easier, because transmedia could mean a
No,
million
I just
different
realized what its short for was. But okay, I'm on board, yeah.
Okay, so he gave a presentation of exactly how this can be done in the gaming industry before he even started working for Blizzard. So my speculation here is that that's exactly why he was brought into Blizzard, to optimize profits. Because we know Bobby Kotick, that dude gets a semi whenever you fucking mention the word dollar. And he was just like, yeah, you come in, let's fucking do this, right? We're really gonna make some money now. And I sort of think that was the first downfall of World of Warcraft, was when books started telling major stories, but not the full story, if that makes sense. So the book doesn't only tell... Sorry, someone just done it here.
420 blaze it.
420, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. He wants to know who is stronger in the light, priest or paladins?
Power levels in Warcraft are bullshit, and it depends on the character, to be honest. But you could argue one can also wield the void, whereas the other has a weapon to swing with.
It would be hard. If you say stronger, that's a difficult one, because based on strength, Death Knight should be the strongest class in the game, purely on strength. But then again, like Nobbel said, it's bullshit, because it's very difficult to know which would actually be the strongest. I would say devotion-wise, probably paladins, because they're fanatical about the light, or at least most of them are.
Yeah, it depends very much on again, it's very situational as well. Like if you pitched an Anduin versus an Arthas, right? Like Anduin Priesty Arthas. Very stalemate, right? Like Anduin could call upon Mind Control and Bubbles, whereas Arthas could call on Bubbles and the lights. It would very much depend on the situation.
Yeah. I think equal, maybe. Best example for it. Anyways, back to what I wanted to say. So from my point of view, the old WoW, so let's say Metzen era, they would take the books and really treat the books as almost stories on their own that is set in the World of Warcraft universe. Like you said, the Magni crystallization thing, that all happened in books. It had nothing to do with the game. We didn't even see it in the game, right? But it explained it from start to finish. Like, you got the entire story about what was going to happen there and how it was going to happen. I just recently read the Traveler series again, because I was very interested. This was actually at the start of Shadowlands. I was interested in Muazala, and the Traveler series sort of deals with him. Now, aside from the fact that Traveler is not a great read, I think if you're an adult,
didn't like
it's not
it, no?
I love the story. I mean, the writing of it is sort of
right.
You can see that it's actually aimed at a bit of a younger audience. It's not actually meant to be a very mature book.
Even though it deals with torture, but okay, yeah.
Yeah, but well, the writing itself just
That was well weird, by the way. Like, they don't do torture often in the books, but they put it in the kids' book and they put it in the Illidan novels. Like, okay.
Yeah, all the places where you would think it wouldn't be, that's where it is. But I just recently read that book again, and it's a wonderful story. The plot of the story is well told from start to finish. It goes to an end. You know, it follows the storyline. I would put this to explain what I mean with I didn't like it. It would be the equivalent for me between a Dan Brown book and a Christie Golden book. I love both plot lines, but I prefer Dan Brown when it comes to his writing style. So I have more fun reading his books, even though both plots are amazing. Whereas the new books, for example, Shadows Rising, not a bad book. But what exactly did Shadows Rising reveal about the Shadowlands?
But I think that comes down to the argument that you're making. So the idea is that Danuser has been added to the development team in order to maximize profits by expanding their lore over multiple sources.
Yeah.
Now, in general, like these rumors, I've also heard rumors that he has Nathanos is him. And he has inserted himself in fanfiction. I've heard rumors that Christie Golden has done things and Patty Madison has done things. There are a lot of rumors that fly around on the internet. And I've always been of the mindset of that's also why I don't really watch or read into like histories. I'm like, I'll take the content as it comes and I'll judge the content for the content.
Yeah.
But when it comes to arguing about the lore, I think a big complaint back in the Cataclysm was because they put so much of the need-to-know lore in the books that they've now gone more of a it adds to it. You don't need to read it in order to understand it, but it adds flavor to the world.
Yeah.
To which I would say that goes against the argument of we're going to spread out the lore over multiple sources because, as you said, what did it add? Not a whole lot. It's a bit of flavor. It's a bit more about Zeppy Boy. It's a bit more about Nathanos. But it's not a need-to-know basis, right?
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making. He was brought on to increase their sort of transmedia presence, and then they decided that players were getting really fucking frustrated. I don't know if you remember, this was really during the Legion era. People were getting very frustrated by the fact that the books were telling stories that you needed to know in the game. And then they made that promise that they're going to move away from that. That's no longer going to be their thing. But no one ever decided, well, if we're not going to tell these stories in the books, we should tell them in the games.
Oh, that was... okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's the failure here, right? The books used to be the place where you get the actual lore, and then in the game you sort of get filler lore, right? It fills in some of the gaps, but the books is needed. Now you have the books that basically is not even filler lore. It's basically stories on their own. Like the Nathanos one was amazing. It was amazing to see Nathanos hunting down Bun-Samdi and, you know, learning a little bit about what they smell like. And those were all sorts of fun things to know, but it wasn't necessary for the Shadowlands. But no one went, okay, if we're not going to tell the lore of the Shadowlands in the book, we have to tell it in the game. And now we're left with this sort of, no one's actually giving us the lore of the game at all. Not in books, not in the game, just nowhere. There's no lore being presented.
Like, I honestly wonder if that has to do with the book delivery or just the poor delivery of the story in the Shadowlands. But yeah, I see the point. But again, it all comes down to rumors and speculations, right? Like, we can't see beyond the chocolate factory doors. Although I wouldn't compare it to the chocolate factory anymore. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, I think... I don't know what the answer is. I'll ask you the final question because I know you want to go jogging.
I'm gonna have dinner first before my jog. Now we've gone on for that long. Hell yeah.
Yeah, fucking hell. 2 hours of me and Nobbel bitching about the lore. Fucking good times. I'm going to the beach soon as well.
Again?
Yeah,
Damn.
we walk the dogs on the beach. So they sort of, well, they don't want to go in the ocean yet. But they're close to going into the ocean.
What kind of dogs do you have?
Labrador and a Jack Russell.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Very cute. Very fucking happy about the beach every time. Because they grew up inland, right? So they've never seen the ocean. They've only been here for a week. So they saw the ocean a week ago. And they
Before
were
we wrap up,
stunned.
by the way,
Yeah.
we need more bitching about the lore. You want to talk about Talia and Calia? Like, what the fuck is the point of Calia? And the hidden crown that they had in exploring Azeroth? Like, what was the point of turning Calia into this light-given, oh, I'm gonna advise the Council of the Horde now? Like, they're putting her up as a new leader for the Forsaken, right? Like, they're gonna get Sylvanas on a journey of finding Navanos, and Calia's gonna take over, yeah?
I mean, okay, let's even go back a bit further. The light creates a Forsaken. Can't be done. Cannot happen. How did this happen? N'Zoth does say that the light has struck a bargain with the enemy of all. So maybe they struck a bargain with Zuval. Was he the enemy of all? Who's the enemy of all? God only knows. Must be something with Calia. But the whole thing with the Forsaken is that they are forsaken by the light, right? Because they're previous Lordaeron people, and when they finally broke free from Arthas, the light wouldn't answer them. And so...
what?
Yeah, there's... in one of the books, they struggled for
We're
a
talking
long...
about ye olden lore then, are we?
Yeah, we're talking about long ago, right?
Yeah. Because that's been changed.
Did they change that? When?
I mean, we got Forsaken Priests these days. Like, they've changed the light. Light used to be this zombie killer, and now it's like, it's really painful.
But that's the thing. The Forsaken for a long time couldn't use the light. The light would just not answer them. And then they figured out how to summon Shadow. Like, they figured out how to do basically the same thing, but using Shadow from within themselves. Now, that I know got retconned, because eventually they learned how to pull upon the powers of the Void, but this was before the Void was a thing. So the power came from within them rather from within the light. And then eventually they figured out how to basically force the light through them, but at great pain. So they experience incredible amounts of pain as the light flows through them because they're forsaken. They're not actually...
Because I thought their forsakenness did not so much come from the light, but rather they're forsaken by their people. Like, nobody wanted them. They don't have a home. They don't have, anybody else to call. I didn't make connection to the light. Is that from the RPG by chance?
I'm trying to remember now. I genuinely don't think I could tell you whether it's RPG or whether it's from the story itself or from one of the books itself. But I do know
don't get me wrong, I don't know everything, right? I didn't fucking know about the Crown of Wills either, so it could very well be a thing. I just always took Forsaken as nobody wants us, nobody loves us, except for the Banshee Queen.
So the way I always actually poise it is it's one of those two. So it's either that they are forsaken by their own people, and that's why they're called the Forsaken, or it's that they're forsaken by the light, because... in my mind, at least, both of those stories are true. Now, it could be that it's been retconned. I would not be surprised. Blizzard does that. But the last thing I know of is that the Forsaken struggles a lot summoning the light. They've become very proficient, but it hurts them a lot when they do it, right? Because the light is actually not supposed to go through Forsaken because they're dead. And they were... it describes it. It's either in Edge of Night or in maybe Edge of Night, but it actually describes how down, like, they were depressed that the light wouldn't answer them because they're Lordaeron, right? Which is the city of light. They were all light weavers and priests and paladins and all the rest of it.
This all comes to me as like new lore, so I would love to know where it comes from.
I wouldn't even know where to go look for it. It may have been RP stuff. But this is also, I learned about this years ago, right? So this isn't something new. This is like years ago stuff. But the fact that the light can create a Forsaken, to my mind, given even if we reject everything that I said previously, right? So let's say I'm wrong about that. That's RP stuff, and I got it completely wrong. Let's just say that the Forsaken... because this is actual lore fact. The Forsaken experience pain when they summon the light.
100%. All on that. Yeah, 100%.
Now you have a Forsaken that's literally been created by the light. She must be in constant pain, right?
Yeah, but they could be like special Forsaken. Like Calia come back. Yeah, Calia was like, I am all good and healed now. So if we hold hands with Alonzes and Enduin and Naru, we can... bless them all, because at some point they're gonna have to give the Forsaken a new meaning, and this is something that they touched on in, what was it, Before the Storm? Shadows, Before the Storm.
Yeah.
Where they were like, a Dark Lady, how much longer do we have to go on?
Yeah.
And yeah, what is their reason of going on? Because it used to be killing Arthas, which they've done.
Yeah.
Then it was, well, we'll just hang around with the Dark Lady for a while. Where do you take the Forsaken? So they need a new purpose. And honestly, if they tell a story connected to it, would Calia really be the worst choice in that regard? Like, I know Calia is quite the hot topic in that regard. I would find it rather crazy to hear the Forsaken following another Menethil. But at the same time, I could see them doing it. You know what I mean?
See, I think the Forsaken would reject her just because she's not actually one of them. She's not like them. She was made by the light, not by authors, so to speak. So I think
but the new generation of Forsaken were created by the Valkyr, not by Arthas. They're still accepted.
See, I thought that the Forsaken, the story for Calia was going to be Lightforged Forsaken for the Alliance, right?
What?
That's what I thought, because I just immediately said, I don't think the Forsaken is going to follow Calia Menethil. Because I don't know, she just doesn't seem to fit. Now, the Talia thing, that makes... So I get that Blizzard wanted to do this whole emotional thing, right? Where Bolvar meets his daughter again. But why the fuck is she driving the story? Or at least some of the story. I would have thought that Thrall and Bane would have far more, shall we say, leverage, right? And importance to do the job that Talia is doing. Instead, and you've Calia also somehow at the forefront of the story, and it's like, wait a second,
some reason,
why are these two characters, which up until previously or up until recently were like support fucking characters, right? They were the comedic relief whenever there was nothing else going on the screen, and now they're front and center.
I mean, in the case of Calia, you could have her deal with the Arthas storyline, but there is no Arthas storyline, so that's not a thing. What is Calia gonna do? Look at Sylvanas and be like, I'm back, you tried to kill me, no, I'm gonna take you Forsaken now. Is that gonna be her role?
It would have been so perfect if there was an Arthas storyline, because you have Jaina there, you have Sylvanas there, and now Calia, each of them with very real interest in seeing Arthas again. Right? What if they wanted to, and that's why they had Calia there, but they sort of decided not to?
It might still come around the corner, because now all of a sudden, Jaina smells Anduin, and she's like, I smell a familiar presence around him. So she's already hinting at Arthas being there, so maybe that's going to be a thing. And in the case of Talia, her role so far has just been bitching at her father. And that role is going to continue in 9.2, where she's going to bitch some more. She bitched at him to look into the Maw, even though he was like, look, the Jailor's going to dominate me if I do that. And she's like, just keep looking, Dad. You never did anything for me when I was growing up, Dad. And now she's going to bitch at him in 9.2 about not telling her that he was the Lich King. And he's like, would you have traveled to Icecrown? And she was like, I would have gone to the hell for you. What were you expecting? Celebrating Father's Day with an ice cube? Like, what did you want the man to do? He sacrificed everything to save the world, and you're bitching at him for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's... I literally said that they included Calia and Talia to have the stereotypical nagging woman in the expansion, because that's all they do. They nag.
And it's such a shame, because they can do so much more. Talia, I thought Talia was a great addition. Like, are you kidding me? A 4-dragon? And Calia, although done poorly, they are building her up. Like, it's done extremely poorly, because Calia, in the book, is said to have never been taught how to lead. That's why she fucked up the meeting at Arafi. Yeah. And then one patch later, all of a sudden, she's advising the Horde Council, like, she learned a lot. There is growth there. Again, they're not telling it. Or they're not showing it, they're telling it. So there is potential for these characters. There's no need to just give them these throwaway lines and be like, that's it, we did it, guys, that's character development. Like, what?
But you see, this is exactly the difference between Final Fantasy and WoW, if I'm allowed to make that comparison. World of Warcraft is a narrative game that has no narrative direction. The game isn't driven by narrative. Whereas Final Fantasy, the narrative drives the story. The game is driven entirely by narrative. You get these, you get Talia speaking to Bolvar, and it's 30 seconds of her saying 2 lines, and it's like, oh my god, where's the conversation? This is your fucking father. You've never seen your father, or saw him very long ago. You thought he was dead all this time. Where's that conversation? happening. No, it's not happening. No one cares about that conversation. She just bosses him around. He needs to do what she says. And
that just shows up, And in 9.2 they will have that conversation, but there's no build-up, there's no development. But that falls in line with so many storylines they could have delved deeper into, like the Shadowlands potential, the roster of fallen heroes and villains that they had to deal with, to work with. Yeah, and we got fuck all.
There was one story that was actually done sort of okay. It was a 9.1. I'm trying to remember now. Was it where Thrall and Draka were speaking to one another?
Mm-hmm.
Where for a moment, I even mentioned it. But for some reason, I'm now thinking Jaina was actually... It was someone in Jaina, but I can't remember. But there was...
Jaina talked with Uther and Thrall talked with his mom at the end of 9.1.
Yes. I think it was... Actually, no, sorry. It was the Uther Jaina. Yes, that's the one. Where I said, you see, this is what WoW misses.
Yeah.
True, narrative-driven, small conversations. Conversations that link things, that's emotionally there. We know Jaina, we know Uther. We played these characters, we know who they are, and to finally see them have that conversation with one another is an important moment. It allows you to in sort of thrust yourself into the story and be there. But more often than not, when we do get it, it's nowhere near enough, right? It's rushed, it feels rushed. Like, when's the last time we had a conversation between characters that lasted 10 minutes?
None. We don't do that. 10 minutes is a long time. But like you said, I liked that 9.1 stay a while ending. That was after I bitched and moaned about the Tyrande storyline. I was like, I actually like this. And people were like, what? You like this? I thought you hated it. It's like, nah, if something is good, you can actually acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And that part was nice.
No,
Give me more.
That's the thing. I'm a huge believer, and people get angry at me all the time. When I criticize Blizzard, I'm called a negative Nelly. When I praise Blizzard, I'm called a shill. And my belief has always been, if you can't praise someone for doing the right thing, you have no right to criticize them when they're doing the wrong thing. Like, you have to be fair. So I'm more than willing to say, Blizzard, job well done. So, for example, when you earlier said you actually enjoyed the questing experience, me too. Not on multiple characters. They should have known from the very beginning this is not going to work for multiple fucking characters. But for the first time playing it, it was a breath of fresh air after the multitudes of expansions we had, where the story was so fucking fractured because you could go to any of the zones first. And it was very difficult because there wasn't really a cohesive story. So it was nice to get back to that. Here's the start of the story, and now you're going to the max level. And everyone's going to experience that, so everyone's going to know exactly how things happen and in chronological order.
Remember when we all thought that was going to be how we're going to get the patches? Like, if we dealt with Reverend Rev first, and then we were going to go into Ardenweald storyline, and then Meldrax's storyline, and then Bastion storyline.
Yes.
Fuck, man, what happened?
I genuinely said, I can't wait for the Raven Wraith patch. And then I say, lol.
I mean, we got the Nafria Ray. We dealt with the Nafrias quite extensively compared to the other zones. We dealt with Revendreth the most.
True, but that was also sort of from the beginning, right? That was sort of planned. After that, it was build up. And then just sort of fell flat, right? There's build up and then it falls flat. Build up, falls flat. It's like Blizzard they don't get how you ride the wave. Like, it's fine if you put things on the back burner to cool down a little. But then you have to pick it back up. You can't just leave it in the air. You can't just leave it on the back burner forever. And this is something that Blizzard seems to just not give a fuck about. They don't know how to do it. Or they don't care enough. To do it.
I mean, you mentioned earlier how Final Fantasy is story driven, and that's 100% true. Whereas for WoW, and I agree with that mindset as well. I think gameplay should come over lore, and lore is like the little package in which you deliver it.
Yeah.
But it's often the question, like, how far ahead do they plan these things out? Do they just come up with a new story beat in an expansion? I've heard Jesse Cox mention before that Blizzard can do a story well in an expansion, but not so much on a broader timeline, like they're not connected. Yeah. And that also falls in line with previous expansions just thrown to the side. So that's just done. That's over with. We've done Battle for Azeroth. Okay, we're gone. we're out of here. You want to say? Yeah?
Oh, no, I just want to say, Sophia, thank you so much for the gifted subs. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Give me some love in chat for Sophia. Oh, it's snowing. Fuck you, Sophia.
You gotta go to the beach. You don't need snow.
But I like snow. I wish it snowed here. You guys get to wear Christmas sweaters right now and fucking have fireplaces. I get to sweat my balls off.
Oh, delicious. Give me some good weather. It's freaking cold. But honestly, I wonder how much they plan out and how much they actually leave on the cutting table at the end of the road. Because, like Battle for Azeroth seems somewhat connected to the storyline that they're telling right now.
Yeah.
But then there's also a whole lot of build-up that never really happened. So you gotta wonder what happens in between.
You see, I think that is actually perfect. It's the idea that no one has sat down and said, right, guys, we need a game plan for the next 6 expansions.
Oh, fuck no.
So we need to
that doesn't happen.
Start a story now. So when Danuser said this is the first chapter of the book of World of Warcraft, or the first book of World of Warcraft, or some shit like that, I was like, what are you talking about? This is not a chapter. This is just weird. Because it doesn't... Every expansion, and JC Cox is actually correct there, expansion-wide, Blizzard does amazing things. But it's as soon as an expansion is over, it's as if they completely forget that they even did things in that last expansion that probably could go on. And probably should go on. I've always said, why don't we have... So, for example, N'Zoth. N'Zoth was the perfect opportunity to probably make at least 2 expansions deal with the N'Zoth threat, right?
At the very least one, yeah.
Yeah, at the very least one. Because this is an old god, just got free. Where's the build-up? Where's the sort of the exposition for these? Blizzard doesn't care about that. They don't do exposition. They want to introduce things and then finish things immediately. And that's the difference between... Because from what I've been able to gather, I don't know how far are you currently with the Final Fantasy story?
I've dealt with the Brussels sprouts.
You've dealt with the Brussels sprouts. Have you met the Ashians yet?
No idea what it is, so I doubt it.
Okay, I'm not gonna spoil anything for you then, but I'll tell you now. You need to focus on every single person that you meet in this game. Every single person.
Yeah, I've already been mentioned that because it gets a callback, doesn't it?
Not just callbacks. Some characters you meet will actually become major characters based on things that happened at the beginning of the game.
Oh, okay.
Like, it happens later on, and you're like, oh my god, really? Holy shit. Yeah. Okay, I get where we're going. Because I think they literally had this plan from day one. They knew exactly
and there lies the difference.
Yes, exactly. They knew this was it, and that was the end. Right? They knew Endwalker was the end of their story. Or at least this story. Whereas WoW feels like...
a reset.
Every expansion is a reset already. I think we all know that, right? Every expansion resets everything. But here's the big thing for me. Someone actually said it the other day. It feels like World of Warcraft, the planned portions of World of Warcraft, ended in Legion. And since then, it's sort of been like that TV series that should have ended 2 seasons ago, but they keep pushing because there's still money to be made, right?
I don't know about it. Like, at the same time, we have, for example, Mr. Pandaria. Like, they can produce great storytelling. And I know Mr. Pandaria, like, oh, Panda's a Kung Fu Panda, whatnot, but I love Mr. Pandaria. Mainly because it was all new and shiny, and we had this whole new continent, new races, new history added to it, and then it flowed back into a storyline that we were familiar with. It was fantastically done. So that's also the question of people like, is this the end of WoW and is it all over now? It could be, but at the same time, they could pull something amazing and it's just back at it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say, but to the idea of, do they plan these things out? No. Like, they might have broad concepts and ideas, but as you mentioned earlier, the rule of cool is very strong in Warcraft. If somebody walks into the door, wouldn't it be cool if we burn down the tree? And they'd be like, fuck yeah, it would be cool. You know?
Yeah. Bad at all.
Yeah, like it's the same with Draenor. Like, how do we get to Draenor? Oh, I don't fucking know. Would it be cool? We could see these orcs of legend of the past. Yeah, it would be cool. How do we get there? We'll fill it in as we go.
Yeah.
That's how storylines get written in Warcraft.
Exactly. I mean, no one ever stops them and says, guys, after we've done this, the fuck then?
Yeah.
Nah, we'll deal with it when we get there. The player base will just be okay with it, you know? And now I think they've started to realize that the player base is in fact not okay with it. I want to go back to your point that you said you sort of think gameplay should come first and lore should be secondary. I agree with you, but then the game needs to know what its focus is. So Final Fantasy knows that the focus is the lore. So they don't really, the other things are important, but the focus is the story. World of Warcraft feels like, again, this is what I said earlier with the old Metzen era to Danuser era. It feels like at some point, World of Warcraft decided, hey, we too want to be a narrative-driven story game. No one informed the quest designers that they're now a narrative-driven story game. No one informed Ian that, hey, this is now a narrative-driven story game. And no one informed the writers that, hey, this is now a narrative-driven story game. So they tried to make this really complicated, almost overcomplicated stories that there's not enough time for these stories to breathe.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would argue that the turning point where they started focusing more on the storyline was Wrath of the Lich King. And if we look at Wrath of the Lich King, there was gameplay, there was storytelling, it was a good balance. And, you know, there's always things to criticize about the storytelling. I don't think it's ever been perfect, especially the endings. There's always something to be said about it, even with there must always be a Lich King.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? But still, that's not to say that it can't work hand in hand. I don't know if I agree with the mindset of they're not aware that they're trying to tell a story, and that's. But I do agree with the idea of they're trying to tell a way too complicated story because it's a video game after all. And I've mentioned this during the "I will never serve" reaction as well. If your audience goes like, "Wasn't she always serving?" You fucked up. If your audience goes, "Oh, so the living Sylvanas now wakes up," you fucked up. You're trying to tell something that's complicated and you're not breaking it down enough. You're not giving it enough time.
Yeah. No, that's that for me, I've often used this example, right? I've said, why is it that Sargaras worked perfectly as a villain? Why is it that all of us were sold he's a villain? Because he comes from Warcraft 3, right? And he's always been in the background.
I don't know the timeline beyond that. Wasn't even before that.
He was mentioned.
RPG-wise, Sargeras was there, right?
Yeah, RPG Sargeras have been there for a long time, but he was sort of very important in the RPG and not that important in the original story. It wasn't until, I believe, at the end of Wrath that Metzen decided, hey, I actually want to make Sargeras a very important character in the story.
I mean, Kill Jaden mentioned Sargeras in the Burning Crusade. I know that much. Where he's like, "I'm gonna overthrow Sargeras." Mwah. So, are you sure about that, toilet boy?
But okay. So, from what I understand, so just to say, he's been around for a long time, and we've dealt with him slowly over time, little bits and pieces of information. So the player gets a bit of information and then has time to sort of mull over this information. Right? And then a little bit more gets added and mulls it over a little bit more. So the character gets built to the point where when he's finally introduced in Legion, the player knows everything there is to know about this character. We know this character. With Zuvul, he's dropped on the player, right? Overnight. Here's the bad guy. And by the way, this bad guy is actually more important than you could ever fucking imagine. And the player is like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, it's literally the I get this image in my head of the guy, Zuvul walks into the room and he's expecting applause and everyone's just sort of going like, who is this guy? Like, who the fuck is he? Right? That's the problem. Blizzard wants to tell stories that's too complicated and they're not putting enough effort in to make those complicated stories work. Because if you
Yep.
want a story like Shadowlands to work, you needed more time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Or take it in a completely different direction, have Zoval be in the background and just deal with the Shadowlands and have Zoval wander off and do something else, just not have him at the forefront. Because you're
Exactly.
putting him on the level of, like, people have compared it to the Thunder King, which they enjoyed a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And the Thunder King back then was also a lot of tell, because it was a new character, they've given the history, but first of all, Thunder King was not the end boss. And
Yeah.
second of all, he didn't play such a prominent role in the history of Warcraft. He was his own thing. Whereas
Yes.
now, everything is Zoval, which
Mhm.
just sucks. And what you mentioned about the Sargeras build-up, but even then there was criticism because the whole way that they dealt with Sargeras in the sky, they kind of forgot to mention that Sargeras was in the sky during Antaurus. So we
Yeah.
saw him creeping up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the power creep, which is becoming more and more prominent of a problem in the Warcraft storytelling, because we've now dealt with a Sargeras on Titan level. We have wiped out an old god easily, and every single time they do it with a borrowed power. For example, Sargeras and Argus fight was with empowerment by the Titans.
Yeah.
Nuzov was with like the whole machinery and whatnot, which was alluding to an interesting concept of the children outgrow the fathers, but it wasn't really explained.
Yep.
And now with Zoval, we're probably going to take care of him with like first one powers and all that. But there is definitely, they're trying to push the ante with making a bigger and bigger and bigger bad. Whereas my argument is a fire-breathing dragon can be just as dangerous as a Zoval.
Oh yeah.
It's just the way of you presenting it.
If you do it right, by the end of it, people fucking hated Deathwing. You know, I would say far more than they fucking hate Zoval, mainly because by the end of it, even the players who don't really follow the lore knew who Deathwing was. Whereas Zoval is obviously, he may as well be anyone at this point. But I 100% follow your example there. You have to make a decision. Like Steve Danuser and his team must make this decision before they continue with anything. Either you dumb down your stories, you stop with the whole grandiose, we're gonna tell Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings level stories, or if you want to keep telling it, you have to get Ian into the room and say, bro, right, we're gonna need 3 expansions to build up the next fucking character that we're creating. That's it. We're not going to do a big bad this time around because we have a big bad, but that big bad is only happening really somewhere down the line, right? Right now, it just feels like they're trying to do too much with too little. And I think most players are seeing it now. I think most players are seeing through it. My question to you would be, and I really have to go almost, but I want to ask you this final question. Do you think if there wasn't a content drought, players would have felt the same?
I think for the majority, like, is the question like content drought or if actual fun content? Like, what's the question?
Would
like if it was a fun gameplay?
So here's my example of it, so that it hopefully explains it for you. I've said for a while now that World of Warcraft feels more like a looter shooter than it does an MMO. It feels like you do the same thing over and over again just to get the loot, and then next time you'll do more just to get the loot. Mm-hmm. And looter shooters work as long as you provide players with an endless supply of things to do, right? So every 6 months there's brand new content that they can basically optimize for and keep getting new loot for. The problem is that once the loot dried up, once the stuff dried up, most players started realizing, whoa, wait, I thought I was playing an MMO. This is not necessarily what I signed up for. So the cracks started to show because of the drought. People started recognizing the cracks, and now the cracks are there. You can't unsee it.
I mean, I think in part for those that love the story, and it's really heartbreaking. I've seen some diehard fans that have defended Blizzard time and time again, just be like, fuck this storyline, fuck what they've done with the universe that I love so much. And honestly, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
To have people that are so invested and you just treat them so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the gameplay, it's a complicated question. Because would more of the same keep people going? I don't know. Because I remember in Battle for Azeroth, it was pretty much more of the same, and it was less of a content drought, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And yet you could also hear the complaints, like what you're making us do is not fun.
Yes.
And I think that's where the problem lies. And we spoke about this earlier. Their focus does not seem to be on what's fun, rather their focus seems to be on what keeps people engaged. And
Yes.
there's a difference in there.
Yeah.
Do I think that the effects would have been less if there was more content? Absolutely. But at the same time, I still think that they would see a drop in player base. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They need to, and this is the part where I just don't have enough knowledge or experience. I'm not a game developer.
Yeah.
I can't define what is fun. I can only judge what is in front of me.
Yeah.
And what is in front of me right now is I don't give a shit about farming anima, nor archaeology power to level up some system, to then in the next patch do farm your alphabet. Meanwhile, when the next patch comes around, the previous one becomes a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
I don't care about that kind of stuff. Why don't you put more time and effort in your Mythic Plus system, in Torghast, in all this content, the Brawlers Guild for all I care, player housing people have been caring about, side stuff like transmog, dyeing your own gear, making your own shit. There is so much more that they can do with the game rather than the bare minimum they've been giving us. As I said, Corvia is Maw Plus. The Maw felt on beta times like it wasn't finished and it was released.
Yeah.
And then they added another piece of content that was exactly like the Maw. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? This is not even bare minimum anymore.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind it, be it working from home, be it the work situation, be it whatever, at the end of the day, it's a product that you buy as a consumer, and if the product does not live up to your standards, don't fucking buy it. That's what we're seeing.
I mean, I 100% on the last point. Just want to say 100% agree with you. It's not the client's fault that you have problems producing stuff, right? So I've never really accepted it as an excuse, because at the end of the day, you have in my opinion, a responsibility to bring a finished product to your audience. And you can't just go, well, keep giving us money, but obviously we couldn't finish it. No, then don't release it. Then take the L. But there's bigger problems that I have with how they dealt with Shadowlands. For example, nowhere during the 9-month content drought did Ian once step out and say, hey guys, it's going to be 9 months before you get new content.
Balls on them to be dropping a store mount in the middle of a content drought and be like, oh yeah, the art team doesn't do anything else anyways. Well, fuck it. Put it in the game.
Yeah. At least that would be content, right? But no, instead they allowed people to waste their money for 9 months, hoping that this month it's going to be the PTR. We kept making videos going, oh, it's going to be this month. It's going to be fucking this month. And then 9 months later, here we go. But to your other point, I would say, I'm trying to think now exactly how I would phrase it. No, never mind. I wanted to say I agree with you, but there was something that stood out to me, but I completely fucking forgot now.
There was something about not using it as an excuse, and I would say you can keep it in mind, right? Like these are not easy times for anyone, and apparently the work environment over at Blizzard. But then there's also the bitching part about some of these people that have come forward have been there since the beginning. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just been gradually growing. And like I said at the start, I too, if I was working there and I would see that upper management does not care about me, why the fuck should I care about upper management? Right?
Yeah.
Why should I care about these products? But that's not to say that, as you said as well, there are developers that truly have a heart and a passion for this product, similar to the player base. It's just a matter of that needs to be shown as well. And I don't think a lot of people were expecting 9.2 to blow anyone's minds and change any hearts. I don't think that was the case. But the pressure is definitely on for the next expansion, and I don't think they can get away with what they've been doing. It's gonna have to be groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And at some point you're gonna reach a level where it's just not obtainable anymore. Like, what could they do? And that's I hope for them that that's what they're working on.
So I remembered what I wanted to say to you.
Hell yeah, I filled up time proper. Let's go.
I agree with you that it was always going to be a ticking time bomb, right? Eventually, players would always have realized, the fuck is this? This is not fun. I'm not enjoying it, right? I think the content drought exacerbated that. It sped it up quite quickly to where players realized, oh, I'm not having fun. But to your other point, the housing and stuff like that, my example of this have always been a theme park, because WoW is a theme park MMO. As a theme park MMO, your job is to build rides for the players and then stand back and let them enjoy the rides, right? You have to build as many rides as possible. The problem that I've always noticed within Blizzard is they refuse to build a ride if 100% of the player base don't partake in the ride. So I genuinely...
Is that true?
I think so. Look at Torghast. Torghast, in my opinion, should have been a cosmetic-only feature. It should have had cosmetics for people that love farming cosmetics. It should have provided a challenge for those that love the challenge. So endless floors that becomes as hard as the Mage Tower, if not harder, to see how far you can go. But there should never have been Soul Ash inside Torghast, in my opinion. Because as soon as you enter Soul Ash into it, you're, as far as I'm concerned, crossing streams. Because the people that may enjoy Torghast aren't automatically going to enjoy raiding and PvP. Right? But now raiders and PvPers are also forced to do your Torghast. So suddenly, Torghast needs to be dumbed down to the point where everyone can do it because there's actual player power there. But it feels like Ian refuses to release a system that doesn't have player power tied to it because maybe no one wants to do it, or maybe only a small amount of the community wants to do it.
That's what you mean. Okay, now I was thinking more about, like, for example, raiding at the highest tier, like Mythic raiding. That would not be for everybody, but they still release content like that for if you're looking for the challenge. But you mean more in the sense of we've come up with this new system, we need to show our board of directors or whatever team they need to show it to that is actually engaging.
Yes.
And therefore, we're going to make people go into it. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And I think that's World of Warcraft. It's one of the biggest gameplay failures. And I realize it's two lore guys talking about gameplay, but we also play games, so it counts, I think. But for me personally, that's what Blizzard needs. Blizzard needs to say, right, we're going to bring back the farm from Mist of Pandaria, because there's actually people that love that fucking place. We're going to upgrade the garrison to make it true player housing, the way that player housing is supposed to be done. We're going to fix the professions. And we know that not all of the content that we make here is going to be played by 100% of the community. But we're going to try and make content for 100% of the community. So that everyone has their place.
It requires a lot of time and a lot of money and, of course, risk. And
true.
For the last few expansions, they just seem to be, you know, and then as well as dropping old content or not developing it any further, that you're like, Mythic Plus was so popular. Why would you not look at the response to the Mage Tower? Why would you not? The Chromie scenario, why would you not do more stuff like that?
Oh,
the little side content.
The Chromie scenario was so fucking fun.
Right. And it meant fuck all. You got some transmog out of it, but you did it because it was fun to do.
True. It was fun. It was just an enjoyable experience. I spent hours doing the Chromie scenario. And I'm not even fond of the dragons in World of Warcraft, to be honest. But I enjoyed the Chromie scenario. It was a cool scenario to play through.
There's more shit they can do. Same with allied races, or getting your specific sets from your race with little storylines attached to it. Where's that fire and passion? Where's that content in the Shadowlands? It's not there.
I would say time walking needs to get off this. The other thing that pisses me off is Blizzard's FOMO design. Like, constantly there needs to be timelines. You can't do it forever. Why can't you go into time walking whenever the fuck you feel like it? Like, why not? If I want to do a Wrath of the Lich King dungeon, I should be able to get my friends together and go do a Wrath of the Lich King dungeon. And no one's saying that you... Because I think the reason they have that is for queue times. Because if you have all of those dungeons open, queue times might be forever. If someone, let's say everyone's signing up for Wrath of the Lich King, but no one's signing up for TBC, now you have a bunch of TBC people, 3-hour queues.
But is there a reason to do a specific time walk, and don't they all give you the same rewards, like the time badges?
Yeah, you could just say it's random, right? So you can't really choose which one. You just do random time walking, and you can have fun.
Or allow pre-mates to go in there, you know?
True. You build up. You ask for people to join your time walking, and you go do minimum item level no echo time walking, and you can have fun with your friends on a Friday night. You and your guild grab a couple of beers, and you go run Icecrown Citadel again, right, at the difficulty that it was intended to be at. What I would do with time walking is I would actually scale it up to max level, to where we are today. So if it needs to change, if some of the abilities need to change. Some of the things need to change to sort of incorporate the new class system. Do that. So that... Because I'm going to be honest with you. I watched a video not long ago from a Final Fantasy player who tried World of Warcraft for the first time. And his biggest complaint was he got dropped into BFA with this lady Jaina that he had no idea who the fuck she was. And he was thrown into prison immediately, and he was like, why am I...
why am I being punished for playing your game?
Yeah, I don't get why I'm in fucking prison here.
It's brilliant.
And as I was watching this guy, because he's a brand new player, he's never played WoW, he's only played Final Fantasy his whole life, I thought to myself, I feel for this guy, but I feel even worse for the people that actually stick it out and make it to max level, because they're never going to experience Icecrown Citadel. Mm-hmm. They're never going to experience killing Cthulhu. You know?
I've had people ask before, like, I really want to dive into the story of Warcraft and I want to play through the game. How can I do this? And it's just not possible. I was like, you can follow the patch releases, see if you can do that, but some of the patches are no longer available.
Exactly.
So it's not there.
There's story chunks missing.
Yeah, they got Chromie Time Walking, so I don't really see the problem with adding the Battle for the Undercity back in, or the Darkspear Rebellion.
True.
Just add all the stuff that you remove from those previous expansions, and let people go through it.
Yeah. You need to create a more cohesive feeling, a better game, a game that feels complete and allows for people... Yeah, sorry?
Sorry, at the same time, I would argue, like, the reason why they reverted the whole classic into Cataclysm was because it was an old leveling experience. One of the downsides to Final Fantasy is if you want to get somebody to play Final Fantasy, you got to convince them to put in like an X amount of hours until it gets good.
Yeah.
And while it offers a cohesive story and it has a whole lot of reasons behind it because it's all connected, that does make for a hard sell. Yeah. I personally believe that if Classic would have stayed the way it was, and all the expansions, you need to go through all of them in order to get where we are now.
Yeah.
I don't think you would be able to convince people to play.
I agree with you, but I also think there's a better way to do it. So
Chromie Time Walking, just give people the choice on where they want to level, and just leave that content in there for max level. You can dive back in time.
I mean, you could even give people, if you wanted to do it through Chromie Time Walking, you could give people incentives, right? So there's an actual reason to go back and do these old things for either cool armors, mounts, whatever, right? Play the old stories the way that it's meant to, because you already have Classic WoW. So Chromie Time Walking could just take you back to the original Classic WoW experience, right? And because you already have those things, it would be a nice addition, I think, to the game to be able to experience it that way. But you could also do something completely different, which is you keep Chromie Time Walking right now as a band-aid fix, but then every expansion you rework an entire expansion. So you start with vanilla and you rework the entire quest line for vanilla to include all the important story bits. So here we would say something like Cthulhu is sort of need to know, right? You have to know about Zelithus, Cthulhu, and because he's the first old god that you're really introduced to. So do a storyline that includes Cthulhu, includes a little bit about the Titans, a little bit of lore around that storyline, and then you go to TBC and there's a storyline there. You could streamline it, in my opinion, a hell of a lot better, to the point where it doesn't take you weeks or months, right, to get all of the story, but in such a way that maybe, let's say, within a week of questing, you get the whole story, at least to the point of what people need to know. Because I have legitimately met people in my videos that would, like, you can hear that they know the new lore of WoW, but they don't know the original lore of WoW. Yeah.
That's also why I make it a point to do it from start to finish in every single video, so they don't have to go through a backlog of videos. But alternatively, what they could do is with the introduction of TBC Classic, I believe they made a couple of videos on YouTube explaining the backstory of the expansion.
Yeah.
Why not have little cutscenes in game that tells you the full story of Classic and BC and Wrath of the Lich King, just to get people up to speed?
Oh, yeah, you could absolutely do that, right? You could absolutely have little cutscenes like that in the game, that if there's a story that you're introducing in a new expansion where previous knowledge is sort of required, there's a little cutscene that just... so there's a... look out for this, you'll immediately know when it happens for you. But there's a place in Final Fantasy later. I'm not giving you any spoilers. Just saying,
it's coming. Okay, cool.
You'll
cool,
realize it immediately, and you'll remember this conversation, and you'll go, "This is what I was talking about," and they're actually doing it. So just keep an eye out for that. But they could do that, right? The thing is, it feels like Blizzard constantly wants to. How do I put this? It feels like they are almost against long cutscenes. Like that. A cutscene that would explain the whole history that needs to be known, up until this point.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also the different beasties, ain't it? Like, how many times, and this is something that annoys the shit out of me as well, they try to do RP in the raid, and you have to listen to a 5-minute conversation before you can fight. It's so fucking annoying. How much does the player base actually want the story told into... Like, we like the storyline.
Yeah.
I know that there's a fair bit of people that don't give two shits about storyline.
But I feel like when it comes to that, I think it boils down to your own respect for your story. So for Final Fantasy, it feels like they've just said, you know what, fuck you. This is our story. We think it's important. You will play it, right? And you as the player, you just have to sort of go along with it. But you could always build into... so I, for example, have always said major storylines should probably not be included in the raid. They can have conclusions within the raid, but the storyline shouldn't necessarily be told in the raid, because most people that do raiding couldn't care, right? They're not even there for the story, they're there for the puzzle that they're gonna solve. This is why I actually loved in Mists of Pandaria the scenarios that they used to do, right? Because those were small little story, almost dungeons, but it was at your own pace. You could experience a little story. So you could probably do it to where you don't have those long-ass cutscenes in raids and dungeons where they would matter, or maybe at the end of a raid or a dungeon, right? So those that don't want to watch it can just quit and leave, and those that do want to watch it can stay to watch.
Yeah, but they also gotta consider like who exactly are you using these resources for? Because again, we love the storyline, but as it's fairly pointed out in the chat as well, like for Final Fantasy, that is the story. The story is the game, right?
Yeah.
And the game adds to it. Whereas in WoW, it's usually the gameplay. People want to reach max level as fast as they can, because leveling, fuck that noise.
Yeah.
Gear up, do the things, do the raids, do the mechanics, the storyline. So now you're spending 15 minutes cutscene created for an audience that skips it. Like that would be
True.
You know.
But what's interesting to me, and I hear this often, and I actually agree with your argument, but there is a question that I need to ask, and perhaps you can provide an answer for it. Everyone says that World of Warcraft players don't give a fuck about story, yet a lot of them are now playing Final Fantasy XIV and enjoying it. So, are they not enjoying the story because they just don't like story? Or are they not enjoying the story the way that WoW tells it? Because
the way the WoW tells it, yeah, for sure. But also because you go into the game with a different mindset. This goes back to how you enter Final Fantasy. You need to forget about everything you know about MMORPGs if you come from WoW.
Yeah.
You go into Final Fantasy because you want the story. Why do you go into WoW? And a lot of times people talk about the prestige and the armor and their friends and they want to play with them. I feel like you go more in it for the gameplay. Now, again, I've only tiptoed into Final Fantasy, so I don't know how the gameplay is at endgame.
Yeah.
But I know how it is in WoW. And I remember the feedback from, like, we now look back at Classic with the leveling and whatnot. I remember the feedback that people did not enjoy Classic leveling, and that's why they transformed it.
Yeah.
The same with why they, like, I understand the idea why they constantly refresh the patches and make it easier to catch up to people because you want to play with your friends.
Yeah.
The downside is that it feels, it neglects what you've done previously, but I understand the idea behind playing with your friends. So to the question of what if they like made a better story in WoW, would people be more down for it? I honestly don't know. That would be a complete rework of what the game is. Like, how much do you alienate the player base that you already got at that point?
Well, the last rumors I've heard, and this is just rumors, but the last rumors I've heard is that the player base for WoW is down to about 900 and something thousand. There was a leak as well. Now, fucking leaks, obviously salt as shit, but that also showed that it's about 932,000, I think, according to the leak. Player base that they have right now. So one might make the argument there's not many more to lose. There's only to gain, really. You know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'd be down for it. Like, hey, I'd be down for more storytelling and different storytelling. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Story that actually makes sense and is explained and give it a time to breathe. Oh.
Would be so good. Can you imagine being able to make videos knowing that this story has had, you know, so much time to breathe? You'll eventually have to start making videos part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. Because otherwise it can be 5-hour videos just to tell a single story. But I think it's a risk versus reward thing, right? Ultimately, that's what you're saying as well. Does Blizzard risk losing 900,000 players and not gaining anyone? Or do they just sort of go, well, at least we have 900,000 players? You know, if that's the number.
Yeah, but do we want WoW to be a Final Fantasy might also be the question, right?
True. I kind of miss the days of WoW where the lore really was just secondary. You know, where the lore was also treated as secondary. It wasn't really the major thing. I think that's what made WoW special, because then it was truly just about the gameplay. It was truly just, and the gameplay even sucked, but at that point it was new, so who knew? You know, it was better than everything else on the market.
I would say I disagree with that one. Like, especially since it goes back to Wrath of the Lich King, where the story became such a massive part of it, and they expanded upon it.
Yeah,
I think the idea is that it's now more story focused. It's just because there's very little gameplay. I miss the days where I could just log in and spend all day in the game and just have fun with it and play my ults and do all the good stuff. Like,
true.
It's, again, Shadowlands is a difficult beastie to judge because it doesn't feel like a full-on expansion. It really does not.
I mean, my favorite expansion was Wrath, by a mile. I still put it as my #1 expansion. But I have also a very controversial opinion in that Warlords of Draenor was better than Legion.
Disagree. Hard fucking disagree. Wow.
So here's why I believe Warlords of Draenor was better than Legion.
Did you really like the garrison in the shipyard that much? Wow.
No. I couldn't give 2 fucks about the garrison in the shipyard. When I play WoW, I'm a hardcore raider. I want a mythic raid, that's it. I don't care about garrisons or farms or shit like that. I just want to raid. And in Warlords of Draenor, all I had to do was level a character, do some dungeons.
But I've heard that argument so many times, and it pretty much comes down to I don't like playing WoW except raiding, and that's what Warlords gave me. And it's like, okay,
but
cool.
The reason I make that argument is if there were players who liked the garrison was there for them. I wasn't forced as a raider. No, I realize that. I'm saying if there were players, right? If the garrison was better, I think it would have had a nice audience. The garrison was a shit show. But the point I'm trying to make is Warlords didn't force me into other shit that I don't care about, which I think is the way a game should be designed. There should be a lot of things for people to do. Now, I recognize that Warlords of Draenor objectively is a miserable expansion. I recognize that. As an objective commentator, Warlords of Draenor is the worst expansion Blizzard ever made. But for me...
Because Warlords had no content to force you into.
Exactly. But I would have preferred if the expansions that do have content don't force me into the content if I don't want to do it. Whereas...
That's a fair point. But at the same time, there's a fine line between... There's a fine line between a path of progression, a path of growing your power in order to overcome a challenge, or just getting the challenge, I suppose. And there's a fine line in making it fun or not. But I understand the mindset. I've heard many people say, like, I really enjoyed Warlords just because of the raiding.
Yeah.
I loved Legion. Legion wasn't perfect. I understand that, especially with the random legendaries, but I loved the artifact system. But then again, I wasn't a main raider in Legion, so what the hell do I know?
Legion was good, but Legion again had my issue that I couldn't level alts and easily get into the raids because I first had to level this fucking weapon. Now with the catch-up, eventually it made it so that I could just go into a single normal raid, get all the fucking points, and then raid again. But I've always been a guy that just raid. In Wrath of the Lich King, I played 16 hours a day, and I had every alt max level, and I would just run Icegrind Citadel. Literally, as soon as we finish one Icegrind Citadel run, I log on another character and we do another one. Because Me and my friends were just raiding. That's it. So I've always loved raiding. I like figuring out the fights and then doing it on other characters. The issue for me, like I said, is just the fact that I'm now forced into like doing crap that I don't want to do, that I don't necessarily care for, in order to do the thing that I care about. But I also recognize that if World of Warcraft is ever going to do that, they require better content for those people that aren't necessarily like me. And I'm with you when you say the path to progression, right? There must be a path to progression, and I would be okay with that. But then the path that you choose must also be something that you know those people would like. So I come back to Torghast. PvPers, right, literally will do nothing that Torghast offers them if they had a choice, because it's literally not the thing that PvPers do in the game. Yet they're forced to do Torghast so that they can PvP. It's like, wait, but who designed this? This is wrong. It's literally like going to a vegan community and opening a barbecue shop. It's like,
at the same time, counter argument, I remember in Legion, I was not interested, and I figured I wasn't good enough for Mythic Plus until the Illidan storyline required me to go into Mythic Plus to get the next part of the story.
Yeah.
It forced me into that content, and I absolutely love the content. So at some point, there's a fine line, and I 100% agree that where we are right now is not the right way. Like, people should not have to farm this much in order to get their character operational. Their character should just be operational from the get-go. But there's also a part about where do you draw the line between I am forced to play this game or this is the game that I'm playing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But could it also be possible to maybe create those hooks without those hooks being long-lasting?
I feel like those hooks have always been there. Like, if I think back to Burning Crusade, how many reputations and keys did you have to get in order to get to the higher dungeons in order to actually be able to raid? And
True.
all the carrot on a stick, like, that's the problem. Like, WoW is based on a carrot on a stick model, and they have now reached the point where the carrot has just become a bag of dicks, and you're trying to reach the bag of dicks, and it's just there needs to be massive overhauls, and that's. But again, it's a lore guy talking about game mechanics. What the fuck do I know?
No, I mean, no one in this chat should think that either of us have a fucking clue what we're talking about. We're literally talking about our opinions. I'm sure if I designed the game, Nobbel would hate it. And I'm sure if Nobbel designed the game, I might hate it. We're just talking about what we think would be cool.
In my world, you would have player housing, okay? How can you not like player housing?
Oh, I couldn't give two fucks about player housing.
Damn it. Okay, you wouldn't like my game. I would give you a teapot and you would be able to decorate it and it would be great.
I would, if there was player housing in WoW, I would not care about it. In Final Fantasy, my viewers wanted to take me to the housing district. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Let's go do something else. Because it's like, okay, I'm never going to own a house. I'm never going to try. Because that's not my thing. Instead, when I discovered the Golden Saucer, that's where I realized this is the end game. Chocobo racing is what it's about. If you chocobo race, you don't need anything else in Final Fantasy. Just race my chocobos. I'm having fun. But so yeah, I think we can go back and forth forever. But at the end of the day, I think we're saying the same thing. And we've said this with the lore, with gameplay. Blizzard needs to figure out what they want to be. Figure out a game plan for getting there. And then stick to it.
What a way to end it. Right, I'm going to dip out, heat myself up a meal, and you're going to go to the beach, right?
I am going to go to the beach, yeah. Nobbel, thank you so much for fucking hanging out with us. It's been fun. 3 hours. I thought you were going to come in for like an hour, and then it's going to be done 3 hours later. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Degenerates, thank Nobbel for hanging out with us, for giving up.
Just fucking order, do it now.
Oh, yeah. Be nice, guys. Fucking be nice. Nobbel, I appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much for dropping in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy
Unexpected but good chat, I'd say. Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely fucking enjoyed it. We should definitely do it again. Maybe next time I'll come to your stream and I'll keep you busy when you're playing Final Fantasy.
Ooh, sounds good. Right, I'm gonna dip.
Peace out, dude. Peace.